Welcome back, everyone. I told you I wouldn't be gone for long. So, we're back. Last time around, we finished up the game completely, and now all that we have left to do is some of the bonus episodes and things like that. Obviously, my party has been rearranged and reorganized, but we keep all of our levels from that fight, so it's good stuff. Actually, I don't particularly care who's in my party. All I really do care about is that I've got costumes set up. Also, got orange hair for Lloyd. Weird. Okay, let's go and unlock us some episodes. Oh, they do have the group mission lines translated now. Damn it! They're at the very end of the extra chapter. No wonder I didn't see them. Alright, I got Sealing Stone first, so I should open that puppy up. That one we're gonna have to view last. But, very interesting. Very interesting. What's in this guy? True Keelan. They just throw some nice stuff in these. Cool. I mean, I'm not gonna get into any more fights. I mean, unless I do it, like, off-screen. But, like, whatever. Let's watch some episodes. Do I have them all unlocked? How many are there supposed to be? There's like 30, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. No, those don't count. Those don't count. Okay, so there's 25 episodes in total, and then there's like a bunch of beach events and stuff. So, I should have 25. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, I am missing a couple of episodes. Excellent. I'm sure I will get them somewhere. So yeah, let's watch Aurelia, Wallace, Mary, and Makarov. Wonder what they all have in common. Early March, 1207. General Aurelia Le Guin, who once united the provincial army and commanded the Weisland province during the Great War. Can't believe I'm doing this already. So... continued working as the principal of the branch campus, and on this day, she was reading some documentation. I mean, documents, but shh, don't worry about it. Apparently I'm in full, editor mode today. Which might be good. Maybe I should do some writing today. Thor's Branch School Principal's Office. I suppose it's a good time to take a break. I never expected to continue working as the principal of this academy when I was appointed here. However, given the future of the continent, there's great significance to being at this school. And I never planned to return to the army anyway. I must continue working hard as the principal to support Lady Mildine as well. Reviewing the educational system of the Thor's main campus and the renewal of club activities. The main school is changing, so the branch school must do so accordingly. In addition to relocating and expanding facility and staff, they will be accepting many more students. For now, it seems as though we will continue to carry out classes in the fine arts here, but we must continue to work closely with Instructor Mary from the main campus, not only in regards to classes, but for club activities as well. Ah, that's right. I heard she returned to her home on vacation. I always did enjoy our discussions on romance. The send-off party prior to the beginning of the Jormungandr campaign. And even Wallace was with us too. Ah, speak of the devil. It's me. What's the matter? I see. I understand. Well, that doesn't seem very interesting, but... St. Arc, Count Altheim's estate. Mary. I know this is a busy time for you, being the end of the year, so I am sorry to call you here again. It seems you went to the trouble of taking a vacation from work, too. Oh, no need to worry. I've already completed my tasks. It's kind of a relief to have some time off for once. What exactly is going on? I'm quite happy your work seems to be going well. I suppose there's no need to beat around the bush. I'll ask directly. What's your relationship with that man? Are you talking about Makarov? Yes, him. He's not a noble. I don't know exactly what he is, but he's lazy. I heard that you were dating during the war. Back then it was just over a phone call, but by speaking to him directly, I did get the sense that he had a solid core. I can certainly appreciate him if he is the second disciple of Dr. Schmidt. But what in the world has he been doing these past 6 months? I hear after all of that, he's yet to propose to you. Didn't he come here directly to explain the reason why? Yes, right after the war, he did arrive. I haven't been able to show Dr. Schmidt the results that I'm ready to be a researcher yet. And until I do, I'll remain a half-baked man. But when I stop being a half-baked man, I want to be with Mary. So I need to ask you for a bit more time. He was quite persuasive, and his words were convincing. But I've been waiting ever since then with no news. And while he wants to produce his results as a researcher, he's a simple teacher at the school. Well, he has his ways, even though you may deny him. Fine, enough of this topic. The reason I actually called you here wasn't to discuss that. Mary, I'm going to arrange a suitable match for you. What? What in the world are you saying? I do appreciate that you still yearn for that man. However, you have been waiting for so long that even I can see that you're not totally convinced. You haven't even heard what results he's looking for, have you? Right, I haven't been told the details. But even still, As your father, this isn't something I can overlook. And I was formally approached about the marriage proposal through the proper channels. Breaking this promise would dishonor our family. The date's set for tomorrow. You will accept, right? You're not leaving me much of a choice. But tomorrow is so soon. Oh, do not misunderstand. I don't intend to force you into a marriage you do not want. However, this is another trial you must face in life. He is quite looking forward to this. As far as personality and lineage, I have no complaints regarding him. That's all I have to say. If you'll accept, please rest up for tomorrow. Father, I don't think we're done talking. Yes, we are. Fine. Please excuse me then. Oh boy. Good old nobles and their arranged marriages. One step forward. That night, I see. Seems like I made quite the mess, huh? There's no need to worry about me. My father does seem to accept my attentions. Well, that's good. But you look a bit uneasy. More than a bit. I'm sorry this happened, and I'm sorry you can't rely on me. No, it's not that you're unreliable. I know that you're doing your best to produce the results that you seek. It's boring, I know. But till I do, I know I'm not worthy of you. I'm the one who graduated from the college without producing my graduation project. And yet I'm still his second disciple somehow? George and Tita are producing good results, so I'm pretty frustrated. Makarov? So you must be at the research building at the branch school today. The Keep's a pretty good place for running experiments, after all. Of course, the main campus has more equipment, and the doctor is there after all. I see. You still have to keep the contents of your work a secret? Yeah, I'm sorry, but I can't disclose my research until it's finished. But once he accepts my work, I'll definitely show you the results. And when that happens, I'll gladly meet your parents again. Well, my father aside, I'm in no hurry, so please, take your time. It's already late. Let's end this for today, then. It's good to be persistent, but don't push yourself too hard. I've only got one lesson tomorrow, so I was planning to stay up late all night. But I'll make sure not to overdo it. Good night. Makarov, he's so absorbed by his work. But I know that even with that, he's worrying about me too. Of course I want more. If he would just say, I'll rush to your side. No. This just shows how much he trusts me. Tomorrow, I'll just have to find a way to refuse the other man without being rude. And so, the day of the matchmaking meetup came. The matchmaking was organized directly by Marquis Higharms, the head of the Sutherland province. And the partner was someone that Mary had not expected. Marquis Higharms' estate, St. Arc. Brigadier General Wallace? No, my apologies. You're General Wallace now. No worries. I haven't seen you since the day of that send-off party the night before the war, Mary. Yeah. thank you for all of your hard work. Is this some kind of mistake?
Mary, don't be rude. Your Excellency, General Wallace, please forgive my daughter.
Not at all. Of course she's surprised. After all, General Wallace is one of the most prominent bachelors in Sutherland, but he hardly ever engages in this sort of thing. And though he has been approached for matchmaking before, he's never once accepted. Yeah, this is actually my first time doing something like this. But that's simply because I haven't found a relationship with someone I wanted to pursue before. But after we talked, I started to feel that way about you. And so, as a man, when approached, I had no reason to refuse. But you feel that way about me, General Wallace?
As for me, I'm thrilled that my daughter caught your fancy.
I did hear that General Wallace got some romantic advice from General Aurelia at the party. She knew my feelings, so why in the world did she...
Well, in any event, we must let this event proceed.
I agree. We're just in the way here. We should leave the rest to them.
General, Mary, please enjoy yourselves.
The High Arms and Bardius families are two of the most prominent in Sutherland, so I'm honored to be able to mediate between us.
Sorry, no, that is definitely not the line. I may not be able to read Japanese that well, but that is definitely not what that was supposed to be. Also, just in context, that should be the all-time family instead of High Arms. So, sorry. Let me try that line again. The All-Time and Bardius families are two of the most prominent in Sutherland, so I'm honored to be able to mediate between us. I do look forward to a good report. I'll do my best.
Well...
St. Arc really is a beautiful city. I hear that one of the reasons the city of Chalk was developed was as a place for the capital to be transferred to during the Dark Ages. And after that, when the prince returned, the history of the arts in the Empire went through a major change, too.
Yes, that's right. People were more motivated to pursue the arts in the warmer southern climate. Artwork and techniques from that era were actually bestowed to the All-Time family. Was your family the same, General?
Well, the Bardius family did aid during the War of the Lions, and as a result we were given many gifts. But even without that, I'm actually a person who takes great pleasure and has some commitment to arts and music. For a long time, I actually wanted to talk about these things with you as a music teacher.
Is that so? Well, that's an honor.
Hey, how about I buy some drinks and we can have a chat on that bench over there?
Sure, that sounds nice. It's nice to try something other than a cafe.
Ah, I see. So you can see it that way.
That's just my own opinion, of course. I'm very impressed with your knowledge of arts, though, General.
I could never hope to compare to an instructor in the subject such as yourself.
No, that's not true. I never did think discussing the arts with you could be so exciting, though. Perhaps you've had discussions of this nature with General Aurelia as well.
Well, I've had some good talks with her, yes. Though it's been quite some time since we talked like this. By the way, Mary, I'm sorry for the suddenness of all of this. I heard you didn't even know I was the one coming. No, I must apologize for seeming so taken aback. But I think I've settled down a bit now. And I think I've finally been able to deduce your intentions, too.
My intentions, you say?
Well, I know that you consulted General Aurelia for advice on romance at the party. I presume this is all to make a good showing for me and my father and our family. But that you would have felt that this matchmaking event was unreasonable for you from the start. I'm really sorry that you ended up tied up in internal matters of the all-time family.
Mary, I think you might be misunderstanding something.
I am?
As I said before, I am quite taken with you. And that's where my true intentions lie.
What?
I also know that you have someone close to you, named Makarov. And so this might be out of place for me to say, considering that. But even still, just like Makarov, I'm at the age where I need to seriously start thinking of marriage. And so, even if there are obstacles in my way. But we get along so well, I wanted to see where it could go.
But why would you be with someone like me?
You are right. The opportunity did come when I consulted her about romance at the party. I was fascinated by your appearance, your sincerity towards Makarov. And I found myself frustrated at him for making you wait so long. Knowing that I would have never made you feel this way. I know you already have a partner that your heart is set on, so I shouldn't have these feelings for you. But this isn't something I could give up on. I'm sorry. This is probably quite confusing for you. But I want to make it clear to you that my feelings for you are real.
Wait, does he really?
Well, that's everything in my heart. To properly convey it better, there's a place I'd like to take you. Would you mind coming with me for a while longer?
The luxury boutique in Albion Garden? What on earth is this about?
If this doesn't upset you, I'd like to give you something as proof of my love. Proof of just how sincere my feelings for you are.
That's a bit troublesome for me, though. I know your feelings are sincere, but even still, I'm in love with Makarov.
I had a feeling what I'd be doing is totally hopeless, but I need to state this plainly. I get the feeling that there's something indecisive about your relationship with Makarov.
You do? What is he saying? Sorry, but what he's saying is exactly what my father is worried about too.
Seems like you aren't completely unaware of it. In that case, I have no reason to back down here.
General Wallace?
I know that a ring would be far too abrupt for the occasion. So instead, would you please accept this? Wallace presented Mary with a lovely corsage.
Is this Margaret's corsage?
The language Margaret speaks in with her flowers is that of true love, which are my feelings for you.
True love?
I know that we of the nobility have family issues, and that I may be from a baron's household. I have a track record of achievements in battle. Of course, that is more than enough to convince your father, Lord Alltime, of my worthiness. But it's my pride as a man, and my conviction that I can make you happy.
Oh.
Considering everything that's happening in the Empire,
things will be difficult for the nobility in the post-war world. But if you and I are together, and our homes can support each other, well, I'm not asking for a decision right away. I wanted to take this opportunity to get to know each other better today. Of course, I knew asking you to decide today would be foolish. So, let's leave it here for now. Perhaps we could pick off from where we left off tomorrow. And I'll ask you to think again about who is really suitable for you. Well then, I'll be excusing myself. I look forward to a favorable answer tomorrow. Oh. How could this happen? What do I even tell Makarov? A suitable partner for me? My true feelings. Can't believe we're in an Otome game, guys. I mean, I love it. This kind of sappy crap just like hits me right where I love it, so I'm enjoying this one a lot. The next day. It sounds like the two of you had a lovely date yesterday. The fact that you wish to discuss it further here... Oh, does that mean you've decided to give him an answer? Mary, are you ready to give an answer now then? Yes. I thought about this hard, all night long. And I'm truly humbled and grateful for your feelings, General Wallace. However, I cannot accept your proposal. Are you certain about that? Could I ask why? There is one simple reason. I am in love with Makarov. You love him, then? Yes. I apologize for prying, but... is that real love? Of course it is! Well then, why don't you tell us your true feelings? I'll give up, but only if I hear a convincing answer first. Honestly, I don't know how to put into words exactly. Maybe it'd be a good idea to start from the beginning, when Makarov and I first met. Yes. This will be a good opportunity for me to hear the story as well. When I first moved to the Thor's main campus, I came from such a sheltered life. I was so full of worry. I was used to making mistakes and causing trouble for the people around me. It wasn't like Makarov was particularly friendly towards me at first. Actually, I remember being quite scared of him. But after we started to interact with each other, I got used to the way he was. At first glance, he seemed so sloppy, and he might seem like nothing but trouble. But I quickly learned that he was the one who was watching over me the most, and he was able to give me such great advice so casually. It wasn't just me, of course. It was nothing special. But that's when I started to respect him. And I really liked seeing his friendly relationship with his niece, Mint. After we made it through the Civil War 2 years ago, my feelings were made up. It was so much more than respect by then. I see. But why him of all people? Father, are you that concerned about our difference in status? Or a 10-year age difference? When one person feels that way for another, none of that matters. I lack so much experience in life. As such, I feel it's difficult and slightly awkward to talk about what true love means. However, if these feelings are real, no. These feelings are what I want to make real. And so, I really must apologize. Please forget I said any of this. I see. You've clearly conveyed your feelings about Makarov. General Wallace, then... Mary, if you really love him that much... There's no way we wouldn't accept after hearing this. Mary, please don't rush to a conclusion so quickly. That voice... Oh, you finally showed up. Count Alltime and Marquis Higharms, please excuse my sudden visit. I heard that a marriage proposal was underway today, and so I want to offer my support. Support? So then, you agree with this marriage, General Le Guin? I do indeed. What? Mary, I do believe that your feelings are true. However... Right, Makarov's the main issue. I understand your feelings, Mary, but what if this feeling is one-sided? Huh. He's gotten a lot more serious all of a sudden. Not at all. Makarov does love me. I heard the two of you weren't seeing each other recently. Is it not true that he's been leaving you alone and locking himself in the hangar of the branch school? I mean, Makarov is working so hard because he needs to produce results. And you can't even deny it. I have no doubt that you and Makarov share a connection. But this may also be fate. I've known Wallace ever since we were in the military academy. Yet I was never betrayed or ignored, not even once. As a noble, as a soldier, he's constantly lived up to my expectations, constantly supported me. I firmly believe that his loyalty is directed at someone he loves. He will devote himself to her. He would never leave her alone. He would never make her wait. He would always live up to her expectations. He's a far more suitable man than Makarov could ever be. Surely you must realize that's true, even a little bit. I mean... Wow, for Countess Le Guin to say that much. Mary, I accept your true feelings. Even still, I want you to think about what's best for yourself, too. I want you to pick someone who will stay close to you. As your father, that is my one and only wish. Father... My feelings haven't changed, but what else can I say? Makarov, Wait just a minute. It's my duty to stay by Mary's side. No one else's. Mine. Makarov? Did we make it? It would have worked if you had taken just a bit longer. That's not very nice, General. Oh? What is this? What a beautiful unit. Could this be the rumored? This is the new type soldat that was secretly being developed with Schwarzer, so it's finally complete. Yep, and I was able to get Dr. Schmidt to recognize my graduation project. But the official announcement hasn't been made yet, so we need to keep it off the record. But now, finally, I can stand by your side with everything I am. As a full-fledged man, as late as I might be. Makarov? Full-fledged, huh? That's quite rich, after you made her wait this long, and finally come storming in here. Hey, I don't have any excuses to make. But I wouldn't be a real man if I didn't come here today. Oh. Honestly, I'm probably still half-baked. Be it with research or with her, I've got my own limits. But she recognized me for who I am. It's more than that. She throws herself at everything, always doing her very best. Mary's so charming. She's fantastic. She's everything that I'm not. That's right. So that's why I was at such a loss. I don't know that much about a woman's heart. And I know I'm older than her by a lot. Can I still make her happy? After I heard what was going on with this matchmaking, I actually thought it might be for the better for a minute.
Oh.
I wasn't confident in myself. Putting it off, saying it would just be until I got my research results, it's just an excuse. But now, I'm totally determined. I'm not fooling myself. No more fooling her. General Wallace, I won't give her to you. No matter how unsuitable I may be for her, no matter how good you two might be together, I won't give up her feelings to anyone else. Not ever.
Makarov.
You got me. I finally see how serious you are. I surrender. Seeing how completely enthralled you are, I can accept that there's no room for me here. Well, that may be the case. Mary, if you're alright with this.
Father? Yes, of course.
Well, this is all well and good, but at this rate, this will bring dishonor on everyone who prepared for this. You are prepared, are you not? Then let's turn this over to you, to show you proof of what you say. What? That's right. I'd like to see this proof of yours as well. There's no issues, I trust. Count Eldheim, Marquis High Arms. None here, of course. Let's see it then.
You got this, Uncle Makarov.
Mary, I'm still immature. I'm sure I'll cause worry for you in the future. But with these feelings that we share for each other, I know we'll be able to overcome whatever life throws at us. You are someone I cannot live without. So please. Will you marry me?
Makarov. Of course. I'll be counting on you from now on. I really do appreciate your concern for me.
You too, Marquis. I apologize for the trouble.
Oh, please don't mind. In exchange, I got to see such a lovely event unfold.
Well, knowing you two, I'm sure you would have eventually settled down together in the future, even if this hadn't happened. By the way, that corsage I gave you yesterday? Think of it as a celebratory gift. For your own true love.
General Wallace, was this your plan from the beginning?
You're a shrewd bastard, aren't you? Oh, come now. Even still, you really know how to stir up a pot, don't you, General Aurelia?
What do you mean?
Well, Wallace actually helped me to prepare for this plan. Thinking about things further, I thought it might be interesting to consider what a connection between Mary and Wallace would look like. And if Makarov didn't pull through, then everything would be all set. It's quite the sobering experience for me. I swear, you're something else.
This might be a bit out of place, but perhaps you were able to take a step forward as well?
You got me then.
Ooh, what's this now?
Come on, it's rude to butt into other people's business.
Oh, come on, it's fine. I mean, it's all thanks to me that you were able to get together, weren't you? That is true, Mint. You pushed two of us together quite a few times, didn't you?
I guess I can't deny that. But I also can't deny that you caused a lot of extra trouble, too. But I do appreciate you being here today.
You're very welcome. I just wish you'd be this honest more often, Uncle.
You little, don't get cocky. In any case, this is a day for celebration. Please, do accompany me back home for dinner. Let's share a drink and discuss the future. Oh, yeah, of course, I'll take you up on that. Then let's get going. It really makes me realize that people are such unpredictable creatures. Mary aside, I never expected Makarov to show quite that much spirit. Indeed, I could learn a little something from him. Well, based on Mary, you got pretty close this time, Wallace. Are you certain that really was all just an act? I wonder. Ah, by the way, if you have time, General Aurelia, would you care to have a little match with me? A match? Now that you mention it, it has been a while since we've done so. Very well then. Let us have a match on horseback. Oh, are you certain? I can't help but remember the matches we had on horseback when we were students. And I'm still full of regret for the unfortunate way that match turned out, too. Hey, it was a draw, right? I mean, the head of the equestrian club... the head of the equestrian club drawing against a first year is basically a loss, I'd say. I can't quite accept that, though. It's my loss. It seems that an incredible first year has joined our ranks. So then, what exactly is this wish that you wanted me to grant if you were able to beat me? I wouldn't say that I won. Do I still have to answer even if the result was a draw? One day I will become a great general known across the world. In order to show the potential of the sword. And if the goddess allows it, I want you to support me as my right hand. How nostalgic. Thinking back, in many ways, that might have been the start for me. Oh, what are you smiling about? Nothing. I was just thinking this was a good opportunity for me as well. Very well. I'll respond with all my strength. I won't let you off with the same results when we were students. I believe that's my line. If we're going to fight, then I shall be victorious, Wallace Bardius Senpai. That brings back some memories. But I accept. Prepare yourself, Aurelia Le Guin. Aww. My babies. Seriously, come on, Wallace. You and Aurelia would be like the cutest couple. And we get 10,000 Mira. And the true wind bell. Tempest bell, whatever it's called. Cast wind arts fast, go pew pew pew. Alright, we got more episodes to do. So there's the Ash episode. There's Rean and Daddy episode. I kinda wanna see this one. It was about 3 months after Operation Jormungand. I received a confidential letter from Major Claire. It was an invitation to Valaflame Palace to take care of some unfinished business. Could you step outside for a moment? Understood. This is Chancellor Osborne's. So this was my father's office. doesn't feel like it's real. Reality may never set in. Following the war, we got most of what he left in his will to their rightful recipients under the table. That being said, there wasn't much left behind at all. Apparently, he even disposed of a number of his personal belongings before the war. Did he now? Sounds just like him, doesn't it? Considering when and where we found it, it was probably caught between the pages of his memoir. Unfortunately, his memoirs were burnt beyond saving. But I think that at least this one item is. Please, accept it, Rean. Thank you, Your Majesty. Having this alone is more than enough for me. That he cherished this photograph until the end. I think that's all I need from him. I see. Goodness. To think he also had a son by his own blood. Following the war, it was difficult to publicly mourn the very same Chancellor who was responsible for it. But that tomb he built for his wife on the site of his former mansion, it seems you've had his name engraved on it too, haven't you? Yeah, I happened to be in the area thanks to an activity the branch campus was doing, and decided to take advantage of the opportunity. I thought it'd be nice if he could rest peacefully in the suburbs with my mother. Osborne was a close friend of mine, and a great man of the Empire. Let us visit him together sometime. The Tomb of the Steel Maiden in Crossbell as well. Yes, please feel free to ask me whenever you'd like. I'm sure it'd make the two of them very happy. Although, I'm guessing saying that it makes it sound like we were really close, but I never actually got the chance to get to know him. Well, if you think you hardly knew him, then surely I'm no better. As you only knew bits of your true father, I only knew bits of the true Chancellor Osborne. A shame. I wish I had gotten to know him better myself. But now the twilight is over, and the great ordeal of our history is past. Our job is not to dwell on the past, but to pick up the pieces and keep moving forward. Yes, well said, Your Highness. Memories of a Fiery Gaze. No matter how many times I look at it, there's still something that feels off about all of this. I thought I saw a scene similar to this when I used the lunar mirror, but I still can't imagine him making this sort of face. I suppose that's proof that I never truly knew him. Regardless, I'd like to clean up this photograph and take good care of it. For now, though, I have an early day tomorrow, so I better be getting to bed. Huh? On that fated day, I chose to surrender my flesh and spirit to the Black Knight. Yet it was by my own will that I decided to bring this empire to ruination. To free this land from the abominable curse. A man who would choose to destroy the world in which his loved ones reside can hardly be considered human. Therefore, I pledged to become a man of blood and iron, one who would lead this world into strife. Let my legacy be recorded here, to serve as proof that I am in fact myself. In order to call forth the twilight, I had to arrange a number of pieces on the board, myself included. It was around that time I met a young boy, blessed with special foresight. Oddly enough, it was the son of Commander Arundel, a boy named Lecter. He'd taken all the guilt for his father's sins onto himself, and now was being forced into silence by his father's co-conspirators. I chose to give him a place to live in the role of a piece, and inspired within him a reason to live in the form of revenge. Perhaps the compassion I was displaying was something I had ought to dispose of. But maybe this was my way of trying to replace the son I'd given up. It seemed that Commander Arundel had been egged on by the Black Knight as well. But why should his son be forced to shoulder the sins of his father? I didn't know if his foresight granted him the ability to see all the way to the demise I had planned. But with an intrigued look on his face, Lecter accepted my invitation. It was around that time I'd become Chancellor of the Imperial Government. When I was undergoing negotiations with the 4 great houses, I came across an interesting young man. Rufus Alberea, a young man wise beyond his years, yet still seemed vacant and directionless in his ambition. He called me his father, and challenged himself to try and surpass me, an effort to prove the worth of his own existence. It felt like an encounter with fate to be called father once again. In any case, I was quite pleased to see someone trying to overcome me. I looked forward to him demonstrating that he was more than just one of my pieces on the chessboard that would bend to the will of the curse. I didn't think he'd be satisfied by merely being able to call himself an Ironblood. But I was certain that, when he finally found the answer he was searching for, he had the potential to become a harbinger for a new era in this world. Before I knew it, my first 2 years as a Chancellor had passed. With both Rufus and Lecter hard at work, rumors of the Ironblood's existence began to circulate. Meanwhile, I received a letter about Rivelt, a friend of mine when I attended Thor's. There had been an undoubtedly suspicious accident. Figuring that the Black Knight's influence may have been involved, I went to the city to clean up matters myself. It was there that I met his daughter, Claire Rivelt. From her, I discovered perhaps another case of the curse toying with the fates of the people of Erebonia. In the wake of such a tragedy, she developed a unique talent that could be called enhanced cognition, and so I decided to leave the cleanup to her. Despite being wounded, the girl showed the spirit and resolve to stand up to her own destiny. Figuring this too must be fate, I decided to invite her to be one of my children as well. I decided the least I could do for my deceased friend was to watch over his daughter and see what she could make of herself until the advent of the demise. Then, another unexpected meeting occurred around the time I had gone to Jirai to try negotiating about annexation with the mayor. As if she had waited for just the right time to appear, I met a nostalgic face, that of my old silver friend. I heard that she had taken the moniker of Steel and was operating behind the scenes as a part of the society. Yet as we spoke, I felt that she was no different from how she had been back then, seeming nervous for my well-being. With Jirai annexed, one could say that the seeds of the curse had been sown, and the stage for the rivalry was set. When I told her such, she left without saying much else. I should have commended her for her hard work, yet we both maintained our usual cold exterior, and couldn't get our true feelings across. Eventually, another child joined the Ironbloods. Milliam Orion, also known as OZ73, a nearly perfected homunculus. It seemed in the blink of an eye that young girl, the embodiment of innocence, developed proper human emotion and began to grow up. Milliam had something that I could never provide to the other Ironbloods. As Claire and Lecter spent time with her, I could see both their expressions and their hearts began to soften. If she could help those children recover any of life's richness that they had lost to the whims of the curse, I'd be overjoyed. And yet, I understood that this too was part of the Black Knight's plan, as she too existed merely to become a sword that would bring about the end. This was but one more sin I had to bear upon a mountain of others. Surely I was bound to fall to Gehenna along with Ishmelga. Shortly after, I caught wind of the prince's involvement in the Liberal incident. His triumphant return on the Kingdom of Liberal's Arce became the front-page story of every newspaper. Just before His Highness was to depart from Liberal, I went to give him my regards. Indeed, Prince Olivert was an incredible man who far exceeded my expectations. One could say that as we faced each other, the sleeping lion of the Empire had been awakened. On one side, there was myself, who resolved to throw the world into strife. And on the other side, there was the young prince, searching for the elusive third way. Even if he was a hindrance to my ambitions of calling forth the twilight, facing him was a thrill like no other. If the two of us were to face off, it wouldn't end until one had devoured the other whole. And so, as I set my machinations for Crossbell into motion, I eagerly awaited his next move. A group of students from Thor's military academy had come to the Imperial capital for a field study. The Special Operations Class 7. I spotted a familiar face among their number. I had already heard it from Tio and Claire, but his face displayed a kindness, a caring for others. It was just like his mother's. He seemed wrapped up in all sorts of problems, but more importantly, he seemed to have grown up strong and healthy. However, he too was burdened by the curse. The heart beating in his chest was Ishmelga's, my own. As the source of the curse, I couldn't even begin to guess how powerful its influence was. Having to bear such a heavy burden, how could my beloved Kasia, now residing with the goddess, possibly feel about this.
Sorry.
However, if he could not control himself now, he would never survive the days that were to come. I prayed that he would continue to grow in this brief time we had left before the twilight. On October 30th, Crossbell declared itself an independent nation and attacked Guerrilla Fortress, resulting in its disappearance. This is a retcon. This actually happened on the 24th. Why do I know this? Because I have a stupid encyclopedic memory for dumb shit. So yeah, October 24th, Crossbell declared itself an independent nation. In response, the Empire declared war, just as it had been written in the Black Records. With everything set, he finally entered the stage. Crow Armbrust, the grandson of Dry's former Mayor Armbrust. Apparently, left alone after the death of his grandfather, he burned with rage until he became an embodiment of carnage. And everything was proceeding just as I had planned. But I felt I was seeing the true potential that people had. And if I were to speak of such potential, that young man, Rean Schwarzer, had become Valamar's Awakener. As the Erebonian Civil War got into full swing, the Black Knight became even stronger. Entrusted with the Ashen Knight, he was sure to do well. But if his resolve was weak, he would surely meet his end. I don't believe that I was merely thrusting a cruel fate upon my son. Only he can control the direction that his life takes. I wanted him to show me that he has the power to combat destiny itself. Finally, on July 18th, the Grawl of Erebos manifested. Thinking he'd repaired his sabotaged airship, Prince Olivert rushed to the scene to lend his aid. There in the Empire's night sky, he and the courageous were blown apart. A human life is something that fate will easily cast aside, regardless of its weight on the world. He should have been no exception. It seemed at that time, he too had succumbed to that cruel fate. I thought that perhaps after the Twilight, he'd be a useful asset in rebuilding the nation. I felt true remorse for his loss. Thus, with the crimson wings of hope shattered, the sword of the end was swung. Rean was overcome by the curse, becoming its sacrifice. Seeing Milliam die before his very eyes, he flew into rage, lost completely to the curse. I thought for sure that he, who managed to keep the curse at bay until then, would surely have been able to control himself. On the other hand, perhaps he was fortunate to have been transformed into a demon. By the time he had regained his senses, I, along with the curse, may have already been eradicated. If nothing else, I hoped he could rest until it was time for the rivalry to reach its climax. September 1st. Today marks the beginning of Operation Jormungand. as well as the long-awaited beginning of the rivalry. Rean, who should have been at the depths of despair, has risen once more to take his blade against me. The curse has reached its apex, and yet he's continued to grow and persevere. He's had help from many friends and comrades, but that's not all. I can't help but wonder, where would he be now, had his father stayed by his side to watch over him? No. This isn't like me. Perhaps I have not hardened myself enough. I cannot allow myself to waver after coming this far. In the event that the curse should consume me entirely, my son will be forced to take it on in my stead. If I am truly prepared to fulfill my role, then it is both my first and final duty as his father to do everything in my power to prevent that from happening. I don't believe in a world where miracles can occur. But if by some chance, even the prayers of a wretch like me could reach the goddess, then I beg of you, please bless my son with a bright future. What was that? Was it just a dream? Maybe it was just a normal dream, but I want to believe it was real. You carried everything on your own. You always put everyone else's happiness ahead of your own. Maybe it's weird for me to say it, but I guess I really am his son. At the very least, I should do more to pay respect to my parents as their son. Yeah, that's right. This life was given to me by my father. It was saved by my friends. From now on, I swear, I'll do all I can to honor you as your son, every day, in everything I do. I don't think I can ever be forgiven for taking this long to realize it, but good morning, Kurt. Isn't it so nice out today? I don't think I'll ever be a morning person. Good morning, Yuna. Altina. It looks like Muse and Ash are here too as well. I ate too many sweets yesterday. I need to make sure my body stays in perfect shape for Instructor Rean. Why did I bother even coming along? Yeah, Ash. Say whatever you want while we're running. Come on, let's go. Those kids. Well then. Guess I should get going too. Oh man. They just love punching you in the chest with these, don't they? Oh, no! No! Wow. Okay. Thanks, game. Thanks, game. I really appreciate that. Just, keep kicking me in the chest with that kind of stuff, Just do that. Just, Holy crap, how long is this episode? I don't know. I'm going from the bottom instead of the top because, it's like, oh, it happens to be above here. Whatever. Screw it. I kind of just want to see the post-game episode, though. If I'm being completely honest, I kind of just want to see this one first. So, I think that's what I'm going to do, even if it doesn't make sense to do it. Which episode is this, though? What episode is this? That's not it. Is this translated? What is this one? I don't know, I'm just gonna click it, see what happens. Oh, it's 3 episodes in one, that's why. This is Beyond the Genesis, and there's 3 episodes each titled Beyond the Genesis. This is a fragmented record, floating in a vast sea of information. A story of the not-too-distant future. Perhaps it is an after-image from Elysium's calculations? Or perhaps a faint reflection that leaked out of the space-time gap. Who truly knows? Okay, yeah, so it's 3 episodes. It's just done like this. I see. I see what you're playing that game. I was like, which episode is this? I want to know. January 1208, Septian calendar. Located in the easternmost part of Calvard, within a basin positioned between 2 huge mountain ranges, Longlai City. Serving as the pathway to eastern Zemuria, as well as hosting famous hot springs, the small city attracted both domestic and foreign tourists, despite its rustic appearance. On this day, a group of tourists from another hot spring town in far northern Erebonia happened to be visiting Longlai. This elegant texture and rich aftertaste. Oh, what a wonderful dish. Yes, of course, the food at our Phoenix Wings Inn is second to none, but these unique flavors just can't be replicated anywhere else. The high-class inn Heikazanro really lives up to expectations. It's quite a dish. Hekizanro? Hekizanro. Baron Theo Schwarzer and Lady Lucia Schwarzer enjoyed their meal in high spirits. In contrast, my sister Elise seemed a bit worried as she sat beside me. But if you're going to spend 2 nights with a family of 4 at an inn this luxurious, it's going to cost you quite a bit of mira. Saying as much, Elise shook her head lightly. I'm sorry, I know our family can afford it. I just have a habit of thinking too much about budget management from when I was student body president. Noticing his sister's excessive diligence, Rean couldn't help but laugh before explaining the situation. Not to worry, everything's already been covered. After all, we were personally invited here by the manager of the Hekizanro Inn. The owner of this inn was interested in meeting with us as another family that manages a hot spring. I believe we were planning to invite him to Ymir in exchange sometime. Isn't that right, Dad? Yeah, it's to help with the relations between other countries. The Republic's in the midst of an unprecedented economic boon and their private sector's flourishing. I'm delighted. Teo took a sip of his drink before continuing. I guess our nations wish to try working together more, rather than needlessly hating each other. Simple in theory, but not so easy in practice. Lucia poured another helping of sake into Teo's nearly empty drinking cup. And that's why we should cherish these precious moments and enjoy them to the fullest, don't you think? And that's our job as a family. Rean and Elise both nodded in response. Yeah, it's a family trip, so let's enjoy it to the fullest. Come to think of it, I've heard that they have some rare sweets here. Would you like to try some, brother? Yeah, I'm gonna take another dip in the hot springs after dinner, but I'll have some afterwards. As good as the food here is, the hot springs are on another level entirely. You think so too, Rean? Teo's voice ringed with enthusiasm. He hopped on to the conversation. Being the Baron of the hot spring village of Ymir, his love for them was equal to Rean's. There's a great variety of interesting hot springs here, of course, but I think the one that draws my attention the most is the medicinal baths. Yes, I first heard about them quite some time ago, but actually experiencing their unique fragrance and heat that warms you to the core firsthand was something else. Couldn't we try something like that at the Phoenix Wings as well? It'd be worth a try, but achieving the same results might be a challenge. Teo mulled over Rean's advice, leading to even further discussion. As their father-son debate over hot springs grew more and more lively, Lucia and Elise looked on with a smile. This was the first Schwarzer family vacation in a long time. It was a chance to enjoy the same old chatter in a brand new place. That evening, following another indulgent soak in the hot springs after dinner, Rean told his family that he was going for a walk before leaving the inn alone. Well, I guess I better get going. Taking a deep breath, he let the pure night air fill his lungs. Rean remembered the true purpose for which he had come to visit Long Lai. Yun Ka-Fai, the Sword Hermit. An old man in his 70s, and the founder of the 8 Leaves One Blade School of Swordsmanship. He was a living Zamurian legend. The last time Rean had seen his mentor was many years ago, before he had even entered Thor's. Over the next 4 years, they continued to communicate through letters and messages, but it had been over a year since they had had any serious contact. The fruits of those 4 years of training, the experiences he'd been through to unlock the art's deepest secrets, what it truly means to perfect the 8 Leaves One Blade style. There were so many things he wanted to discuss with his master. And there's a few things I need to confirm with Master as well. However, Yun's whereabouts were still unknown, with even Cassius and Rean's other brother disciples being unable to get in touch with him. A man as elusive as the clouds themselves, searching for him had been a fruitless endeavor. Just when they'd begun to lose hope, Rean came across a certain rumor that a master swordsman had been spotted in Long Lai. Rean had heard of Long Lai from Yun many times. Between its hot springs and fine tea, it was one of his favorite cities. Yun had noted in an earlier letter that he was heading for the far east of Zemuria. Therefore, it was reasonable to think that he might be staying in Long Lai, known as the Gateway to the East. It was just around that time that the Schwarzer family received their invitation from Bijnan Hall and planned their New Year trip. He couldn't help but think the timing was too perfect. But regardless, the information was vague, and more than likely was going to turn up nothing. Rean hadn't told his family that Yoon may be in Long Lai for a number of reasons, but regardless, everyone seemed to understand that he had an ulterior motive for coming on this trip. They all wanted to see Yoon again for some time as well, so I didn't want to get those hopes up. With that in mind, Rean went out for his night walk in Long Lai on his own. The hot springs town of Long Lai was made up entirely of Eastern-styled buildings, giving it a unique atmosphere, even among Calvard's cities. It was Eastern style, but not quite the same as Crossbell's East Street. It was a town that perfectly embodied the East's notion of wabi-sabi, not harshly impressing itself upon you, but instead allowing you to tranquilly feel its history and mysterious beauty. Long Lai's nightlife was bustling. There were a number of different types of stalls set up to attract tourists, travelers, and even those who had come from the eastern part of the continent. It had a much different feeling from the Long Lai one would find in the day. Rean walked around the town, asking around at various shops and stalls for information about Yoon. Rean being Rean, however, he felt uncomfortable just loitering and asking questions, so he decided to check out some souvenirs while investigating. He wanted to pick up something for Elisa and the rest of Old Class 7, as well as for Toa and his other upperclassmen. And of course, something for his students as well. Their graduation's just around the corner. Somehow, I think it'll be even more emotional than my own. Soon, Class 7's 2 years at Thor's would be up, and everyone would be graduating. It would be Rean's first time experiencing his own student's graduation. Naturally, every time he thought about it, he'd have very mixed feelings. So much had happened in their first year alone. At the start, they were a tough class to deal with, but in good time they'd begun to get along. They were all perfectly in sync before they even knew it. They'd seen and learned so much. They butted heads countless times, but through those experiences, came to understand each other. Having overcome so many trials, their growth was incredible. It was probably the most intense year of their life, not just for the students, but for Rean as well. The 10 months following the incident in Crossbell flew by in a blink of an eye. Each one of them had used their experiences to grow and to find their own path forward. Settling the past and marching to the future. Every now and then they'd allow themselves a breather, but not one of them would ever stop moving forward. It had been a busy but productive year. Soon, it'd be time for them to leave the academy and soar on their own wings. Rean was proud beyond measure, but he couldn't abate his own sadness. So this is how I feel every year from now on. Guess I chose the hard road again. He realized that he had stopped walking somewhere along the way, paying his respects to all the teachers who had experienced the same pain before him. Rean picked back up his feet and continued the search for information. But as it seemed, Yoon was nowhere in this town. That didn't mean Rean had completely wasted his time, however. They were still unconfirmed, but it turns out there had been some similar sightings in the mountains to the south. If I went now, that'd mean walking the mountain roads at night. But I've already made plans with my family for tomorrow, so guess I should get going while I still can. His course decided, Rean returned to the inn to drop off his souvenirs, before quickly departing again, heading towards the southern mountains. Rean would never survive in a horror film. Oh, jeez. Nighttime mountain roads are notoriously dangerous, but it's not as if one should absolutely avoid them at all costs. The most important thing to keep in mind was that you couldn't rely too much on sight. Your hearing, sense of smell, as well as your sense of touch whenever possible, were important sensory tools. One had to sharpen all 5 senses, take into account their past experiences, to form reasonable conjecture, and come to understand their current situation on multiple levels. Though it's not quite the same as my mountain training with Master Yoon. That had been a much more tense situation, almost life or death training. During that period, he'd intentionally wandered into dangerous places countless times in order to secure food. That being said, this is the Kunlun range, isn't it? I think aspiring martial artists have come here to train for quite some time. Rean proceeded deeper into the mountains, reflecting on the information he'd acquired over the course of the day. Finding a person's traces in the mountains was actually a rather easy task. Campfires, footprints, hunting tracks all served as essential clues. Whenever a person went to hunt, they'd leave some kind of trail you could follow, distinct from those of animals and monsters. With the teachings of his old master, and his avid hunter of a father in mind, Rean proceeded with vigilance and caution. It was only a short while before he found some human traces, but they were different than he'd expected. The remains of an encampment? No, this is... The mysterious traces didn't seem to belong to a hunter nor an ascetic. Even more strangely, there were a number of them, all evenly spaced out throughout the area. It almost seemed as if they were measuring something. Is it academic fieldwork? It seems far too large for that. With these questions on his mind, Rean went further into the mountains. Soon he found himself on yet another trail. Are these the tracks of an orbital car being pushed along? No. Maybe they were using a car in order to make a road or something. In any case, they seem to have given up along the way, or perhaps they tried another route instead. Regardless of where they were now, why would they do something like this in such a remote, mountainous region in the first place? Rean was puzzled by more than just the odd trails he'd been pursuing. He felt that if he'd investigated just a little bit more, it would all become clear. Just a bit further. If I keep investigating, then I'll... It was then that Rean felt a presence closing in on him. It wasn't a great number, only 2 of them. Yet it was clear that he was their target. Rean felt their presence approach up to the dark area around him, but they stopped before coming into sight. Why don't you come on out? Trying to show that he harbored no hostile intent, he said so without touching the sword at his waist. Then, without a sound, 2 figures dark as shadow appeared before them. Dressed in black clothes well suited for stealth, covering their bodies and faces, they seemed to be ninja, a traditional role from eastern Samaria. The Empire's very own Divine Blade. Your keen perception is as menacing as we'd heard. Our contract stated we're only to observe anyone that comes by, but they've been noted as a person of special interest, then things are different. In an instant, the 2 shadows were upon him. And in an instant, with no telegraph movements at all, they managed to close the gap. In the same moment, they struck at him with what must have been known as a ninto, a ninja short but elegant straight-edged tachi. For a moment, Rean was caught off guard, but he quickly adjusted his stance and grabbed his tachi. 5th form, Morning Moon! Morning Moon, a form of counterattack utilizing his blade. One would watch their opponent's movements, and flow as one with them, before unleashing a devastating strike in return. In a single moment, he dealt with both of the ninja's attacks, unbalancing them. Ordinarily, he'd follow up by assaulting the opponents further, but still unsure of the situation, Rean instead chose to keep his gaze trained on the 2 of them. I had thought as much from the way you moved, but actually crossing blades with you. Rean stopped for a moment, intensifying his gaze. Your technique and stance. Are you two possibly students of the 8 Leaves School? As if expecting the question, the two answered after a brief moment of silence. No, our style is not unrelated to the 8 Leaves, but we are the Ikaruga, the wielders of the Black God One Blade style. Black God? One Blade? Rean turned the words over and over again in his mind. The two Ikaruga held their ninto horizontally, assuming a stance where they were prepared to strike at any moment. Though Rean had just overcome their previous attack, they didn't intend to repeat the same failure. In response, Rean rebalanced his stance. The battle was about to begin anew, yet, in that moment, Rean was assailed from the darkness by a black whirlwind, a spinning disc with a destructive force to cut down all in its path. The angle, distance, timing were all perfect for a surprise attack. Seeing the two unsurprised Ikaruga, this attack must have been coordinated. That inescapable blade of death was rapidly approaching from behind. More than an arge and a half in length, it would be impossible to avoid. Perhaps the young swordsman's life would be over before he even noticed the attack. So much for the Empire's divine blade. In the exact moment that the two shadows had assured themselves of their victory, Rean swung his body around, meeting the disc's force with his blade. He didn't kill the attack's momentum, instead applying a strong, yet precise force to send it away from him. With the last-minute counter, Rean managed to deflect the attack before it could strike him. It was an application of the first form, Helix. Having forced the blade to deviate from its original course, Rean struck it once more, changing its direction again. The blade flew back, just to the right of where it had come from. The hidden figure emerged from the shadow, having caught the returned blade. Seems you're no mere novice, Divine Blade. Your unclouded eye is nothing to scoff at either. The figure that emerged from the shadows donned similar clothing to that worn of the other ninjas. Unlike them, however, he had far too great a presence to rightfully be called a shadow. He had well-toned muscles that could be seen through his armored suit. His footwork betrayed not the slightest hesitation as he approached his foe, unwavering. Through the slit in his mask, one could feel the glint in his eyes shoot through, the gaze of an emotionless hunter. His murderous intent was enough to pierce his target like a stake. He was the very image of strength. Opponent only one who'd overcome countless others could have any hope of facing. You two are no match for him. Stand down. Without a sound, the two shadows melted back into the darkness. Rean turned toward the one remaining figure, prepared for battle. Why in the world are you... Could you at least do me the service of explaining why you're attacking me? I'm bound by my contract to elaborate no further. Young Divine Blade, leave at once. It was neither an answer, a suggestion, nor a warning. The murderous intent hidden within his calm words served as a proclamation of what would happen should Rean fail to obey. I'm sorry, but I've not yet found what I came here for. If you won't give me a reason, I don't intend to turn tail and run. I see. In that case... If Rean wished to refuse the man, then the man had nothing left to say to him. He only had one thing left to give him, the sign that their battle had begun. I, Kurogane, of the Hazy Moon style, shall be your opponent. Assuming a sturdy, upright stance, Kurogane held the massive blade he had just thrown forward. I'm sure we could have resolved things peacefully if we just talked them over. but you don't exactly seem the talking mood. Sorry, that's Rean's line. It's always hard to tell. Rean corrected his stance with a sigh. As a practitioner of the 8 Leaves 1 Blade style, and user of the 7th form, I, Rean Schwarzer, accept this duel. Surprisingly, Rean took the first move. Kurogane wielded a most peculiar weapon. It was a large throwing sword, consisting of 4 equal-length blades, joined together at the center into the shape of a cross. Kurogane, who had thrown such a heavy weapon as if it were a child's plaything, must have had immense physical strength, beyond what was possible for a normal person. When thrown, the weapon had incredible destructive potential, but judging by its shape, one could figure that it wasn't well suited to close-quarters combat. As far as Rean could tell, Kurogane's only weapon was the massive throwing sword. Therefore, if he could preemptively close in on him, he would gain a massive advantage. Deciding as much as in an instant, Rean made his move. Second form, Gale! His sword drawn, Rean utilized special footwork to close the distance in an instant and slash at him. But Kurogane took the blow with ease. Though the strike itself had no effect, Rean had still managed to close the gap as he'd intended. Rean thought that if he continued this onslaught, he'd be able to push right through. But just as he felt that hope, Kurogane broke his cross-shaped sword in half. No, it wasn't that. The weapon must have had such a mechanism from the beginning. Regardless, he now held in his hands a pair of twin blades. Double sabers. So Hazy Moon is a two-sword style? He couldn't help it. His surprise was only natural. Double-edged sabers were an extremely difficult weapon to handle, a relic from the Dark Ages. As far as Rean knew, the only person capable of managing one was Crow. Utilizing 2 of them at the same time? It was unthinkable. It was a feat that required incredible skill. Capitalizing on Rean's brief moment of surprise, Kurogane attacked immediately. The double saber's offensive advantage allowed Rean no room for error. The amount of effort required from each opponent was greatly skewed in Kurogane's favor, and soon, Rean found himself on the defensive. Blade clashed fiercely against blade. Sparks flew from their swords as brief flashes in the night sky. The back and forth of offense and defense continued for quite some time. Kurogane held a clear advantage from the outset, but he couldn't press it any further. Rean was slowly but steadily regaining ground. It was natural that through the course of such a battle, Rean would get used to the twin blade style's movements, even though they defied common sense. Yet, it was more than that. He felt that he was beginning to see it. The optimal distance. The double-edged swords by their nature had a much shorter reach than they first appeared. Their blade was, after all, only half the length of the weapon. Kurogane's blades were considerably shorter than Crow's, likely since they were designed for throwing. Because of this, however, Rean's sword actually had a narrow advantage in reach. Rean went back and forth, finding where Kurogane's blade could and could not reach. If he could allow his own blade to just barely connect with his opponent's attack, he'd be able to follow up with a strike of his own. In such an event, the fact that Kurogane required less effort would actually be a detriment, leaving him open to a counterattack. Finally, Kurogane, growing impatient from the back and forth, took one unnecessary step. Rean deftly avoided his strike, and capitalized on his misstep, unleashing a diagonal upward slash. Got you! A powerful blow strikes the hilt of one of Kurogane's dual sabers, sending it flying from his hand. Rean hurried in for the follow-up, but Kurogane instantly recovered from his initial shock and moved to respond. I was like, who's Shirogane? Sorry. Using his other saber, he guards against Rean's follow-up before grabbing a kunai with his free hand and throwing it to keep Rean at bay. As he tossed it, he took a great leap backwards, granting himself some distance. A splendid performance, Divine Blade of the Eight Leaves. You don't match up to our princess, but I'll commend you for being worthy of your title. Princess? Instead of answering Rean's question, Kurogane assumed a stance unlike any he had taken before and continued to speak. To honor such a worthy opponent, it would only be right for me to respond in kind with my greatest technique. At those words, Rean became as vigilant as possible, focusing all of his energy on observing Kurogane's movements. However, there was already nothing there. The place where Kurogane had been standing was now empty. He never took his eyes off of him, never let his guard down, and yet he somehow lost sight of the enemy right in front of him. An impossibly quick maneuver? Spatial dislocation? Didn't seem to be either one. Then he'd somehow made himself invisible. But he's still there. No, that can't be it either. At some point, the sword Rean had sent flying, and that should have been sticking out of the ground, had disappeared as well. I can sense his presence. He's still around, so that must mean... Rean repressed his own impatience and sharpened his mind again. As he does so, the black whirlwind once more came flying at him from the darkness. Half expected, Rean managed to defend without being caught off guard. Somehow, Kurogane had rejoined his dual sabers into their cross-shaped form and launched it from the darkness once more. The angle of the attack changes in the surrounding area. If I try to trace it all back, just a little bit more time, he should be able to ascertain Kurogane's position. But before he could do that, the black whirlwind came flying by from a different direction. It's faster than I thought. Once more, Rean managed to defend himself, but the next attack came before he could completely correct his stance. The break between attacks is even shorter than before, if it keeps up like this. The same attack came over and over. With each attack, the period between throws got shorter and shorter. Soon, the black whirlwind's repeated attacks grew in ferocity and speed such that they coalesced into a mighty storm, the air surrounding Rean blowing with the winds of death. Sorry, I'm doing this a lot. It's like I'm being attacked by multiple enemies at the same time. There's no way. Is he duplicating himself? The enemy lurked in the darkness, his attacks only growing in frequency. In such a state, it'd be impossible to grasp the assailant's position, even if Rean used the unclouded eye. For now, he was still barely able to prevent the barrage, but if things continued like this, his situation would only worsen. I guess it's time for my own secret technique. Despite understanding the immense danger he was in, Rean took his mind off the battlefield. Giving up on complete evasion and defense, he simply made sure to protect himself enough to avoid a fatal wound, pouring all of his consciousness within himself. The power he had cultivated for so long. The power that he had once feared, detested, and rejected. The power he'd once relied on, sought, and nearly allowed to engulf him. The power he'd faced alongside his friends, overcoming it and assimilating it within himself. Emptying his mind as if it were a void. He unleashed it. Lucid Spirit Unification! He gathered the unleashed power within his blade. Ah! With a single rotation of his body, he swung his sword horizontally through the air. His blade, honed to its limit, flew through the air. It struck down the barrage of sabers and cut down the clones that had been rapidly filling the darkness around him. And then... I've got you! Grasping the position of the real Kurogane, he rushed towards him. The real Kurogane was so surprised by Reen's incredible comeback that he had lost his footing and was unable to deal with the next attack. Sorry, I'm doing this a lot. I'll finish this with one strike. Rean poured all of his momentum into a single strike. Both he and his opponent were convinced that this was the end. And yet... Zeroth form. Twin shadows. A voice as light as a bell chimed through the night air as a jet black flash cut through the sky, engulfing even the light of the moon. The flash intercepted Rean, preventing his attack from reaching his target. And that wasn't all. What? With a high-pitched metallic ring, Rean saw his beloved Tachi snap perfectly in half. Princess! Kurogane was shocked by the appearance of this new figure. He couldn't figure out what she could possibly be doing here. I just heard what was happening from our two scouts. Having all this fun out here without me. How greedy of you. She blamed Kurogane with a discontent tone of voice, yet she seemed to be enjoying herself regardless. When he turned to see who was speaking, the figure he laid his eyes upon was more breathtaking than he could have imagined. What? Is that Aryan Road? Huh? I don't know, she looks familiar, but also, what? There was something inconsistent about her. She was adorned with a combat suit that seemed a mix of traditional Eastern-style garb and cutting-edge technology. Her flowing silver hair radiated, beautiful as the moonlight it reflected. She seemed to be around Reen's age, perhaps a bit younger. Her face had delicate, innocent features, yet her eyes betrayed a look as cold and heartless as a bottomless pit. Her appearance could be taken for that of a well-bred young lady, or a heartless warrior who stained her hand with blood countless times. One couldn't be sure which of these two conflicting ideas was right, but their simultaneous presence led to that feeling of inconsistency. In her left hand, she gripped a jet-black Odachi, no doubt the same one that had cleaved the sky just moments ago. That attack was... Rean clutched his broken sword, muttering. The girl, silver as the moon, turned her attention toward him and smiled. Not a bad little weapon you have there, but it looks like it couldn't stand up to mine. As if to show it off, she spun the large jet-black Odachi in her hand and held it up to the night sky. Rean couldn't help but think the pride in her Odachi was earned. Rean had seen weapons known as treasure swords many times up till now. Seeing this, he could say for certain, this Odachi was one itself. The blade was engraved with an intricate pattern. While Rean didn't understand the entire pattern's significance, it was clearly fair to call it a work of art. It seemed as if even the cool night air was drifting away from the girl's jet-black blade. It was as if the blade rejected everything in this world, insisting it was a duty to cut it all away. The sinister blade was connected to a red and silver hilt. Beautiful, indignant, it distinctly contrasted the dark blade. The way that these sword combined these seemingly contradictory qualities seemed a reflection of its wielder. It certainly is an impressive sword, but I still don't think it could have been enough to pull that off on its own. That technique, I've never heard of it, but it has to be somehow related to the 8 Leaves. And her ability? There's no doubt, she's on the level of a divine blade. Rean couldn't help but stare at his opponent. The silver swordswoman, on the other hand, seemed to be enjoying herself and laughed heartily. I didn't expect to meet you here today. Perhaps this too is the providence of Master Divine Scion's gaze. Or perhaps I'm just overthinking things. You can't mean... She spoke as if she already knew him, yet Rean could only posit a guess. That was an interesting technique you used just now. Lucid spirit unification, huh? I'm quite intrigued. Unlike all of our dull senior pupils, you're quite the cute little brother of a pupil, aren't you? Hearing that, Rean's guess became certainty. Are you one of... But the girl turned herself around mischievously, not allowing Rean to finish his sentence. Master isn't here, so be a good boy and turn back around, okay? You've earned this nice little trip abroad for yourself, so you should have fun while you're here. At most, you should just go and sharpen your blade for when you'll need it again. The silver-haired girl pointed to Rean's broken Tachi with a satisfied smile, before leaping away towards the moon. Unable to call out to her, Rean could only watch dumbfoundedly as she disappeared from sight. Without him noticing, Kurogane had also disappeared. See, it said it was in her left hand, but, that blade was in her right hand the entire time, right? I'm not imagining that, right? The Ikaruga, Black God One Blade, and fellow pupil? His goal of finding Yoon still unfulfilled, Rean was now left with nothing but mysteries and doubts. It wasn't just the girl and her compatriots. Rean was certain there was something yet to be uncovered in the mountains ahead. However, uncovering those truths may not be my role. Looking down at the shattered remains of his beloved sword, Rean was forced to consider once more just how vast this world was. If it was confirmed that his master was nowhere to be found, then this was just a normal family vacation. Therefore, the encounter he just had was little more than a coincidental passing by. At least, that's all it was for now. When I get back home, I've got some reforging to do, both for my sword and for myself. There was nothing that he could do for this place, let alone this whole country as he was now. He couldn't prevent whatever was happening was about to occur. However, he still had to prepare for the threats that loomed ahead of him. In the face of this vast world, Rean was still inexperienced. If he wished to be prepared, he'd have to hone himself more than ever before. The mountain path had finally returned to a quiet befitting the night's beauty. With renewed determination in his heart, Rean began back towards the inn. Another hot spring town. End. Okay, I just need to stretch for a bit there. Let's do number 2. That Girl's Ordinary School Life. April 1208, Septine calendar. Aramis High School. An extremely prestigious school in Calvard's capital. Named for the great artist Aramis, who had been pivotal in the Calvard Revolution 100 years ago, its founding goal was to nurture the great young minds who would one day lead the new nation into the future. The school was founded on and greatly values traditional Calvardian culture, but likewise values the consideration of different beliefs and ways of life. Aramis is a free-spirited school, one which respects the independence of its students, and thus attracts applicants from all across Samaria. Many call it a shining example of Calvard's ideals, crystallized in the form of one historical academic institution. Each spring, the much-anticipated Aramis Liberal Arts Festival is held to welcome new students. Shortly after, on a certain day in 1208, still draped in the morning light, a great crowd of students scurried across the picturesque school courtyard. Yet even amongst all these bright youths, one stood out. A young woman with a ribbon tied up in her long, violet hair. Now 17 years old, she'd grown up to have a very beautiful, feminine physique. Despite her womanly charms, she maintained a cute, youthful face, a fascinating combination that drew all eyes towards her. Rean Bright, an exchange student from Liberal's esteemed Genus Royal Academy. Enrolling for the spring semester, she attends Aramis High School as a second-year student. Noted as a prodigy from her youth, even holding numerous degrees and PhDs, it was obvious that she wasn't in attendance merely to attain a high school-level education. In truth, she simply wanted a cover that would allow her to freely explore the Republic, and to engage in some secret training behind the scenes. During her time at Genus Royal Academy, she already ascertained that the front of a student was perfect for such a task. They naturally face some restriction, but on the whole, the world is rather kind to students. Thus, with this goal in mind, Rean had resolved to stand out as little as possible in her time as a student of Aramis. She held that she should act graceful, yet humble. And yet... A fine morning, Miss Bright. Oh my gosh, it's Rean! Take a look over there. That girl's really... Oh, she's so hot, not to mention insanely smart. Each student that she passed by had a greeting to give or something to say. She was looked upon with both envy and admiration alike. She was stunning, of course, but she became even more of a celebrity after a teacher leaked that she'd managed perfect scores on her entrance exams. All this fame merely 1 month after coming to Aramis. Regardless of what was actually meant by it, Rean took all those comments as a shower of praise, though of course, some were not. Many were not so well-intentioned. Not only was she an exchange student, but she was one who had attained such popularity in less than a month. Naturally, there'd be a number of students who would look upon her with jealousy and distaste. Even on this fine April morning, there were those who stayed away from her, watching from the shadows as she exchanged greetings with the other students, spewing complaints and slander about the young woman. Rean had no clubs or other such activities to be going to. Thus, after the day's classes had all ended, she took her time tidying up her bag and rising from her seat. Rean Bright, would you mind if we chatted for a bit? There, alongside his entourage of lackeys, a young man called out to Rean. I'm not particularly busy. What would you like to discuss, Griffith? As she'd grown outwardly, Rean chose to likewise demonstrate that her heart had become that of a young woman, by taking extra care to only refer to herself in the first person. Of course, this was also part of her graceful yet humble manner. I was wondering if you'd care to have dinner with me, in order to strengthen our friendship, of course. I've already reserved a table at a fine restaurant. This young man was Ronald Griffith, and he adorned himself with a polite and gentlemanly smile as he extended the invitation to Rean. There were many boys at the school who desired nothing more than a date with Rean, yet each time she would refuse, coming up with an excuse in order to be polite. This time was no exception. I'm terribly sorry, Griffith, but I've already made plans for tonight. Perhaps we could meet to chat over at some tea at a later date. Normally, the boy would get the picture and give up at this point. However, it seemed this time was an exception. Yes, that's fine, but I see you're not in a rush. Truly, there's an important matter I'd like to discuss with you. How about if we go right now? Rean would have been lying if she said she wasn't a bit intrigued by Ronald's suspicious smile. An important matter, huh? It's a shame, but I really do have prior obligations tonight. I can't go out for dinner. Though I do have a bit of time right now. Could we talk about it here? I see. That really is a shame. Though his words carried only disappointment, frustration was written all over Ronald's face. It was clear that he hadn't planned for things to go like this. Though in an instant he had once again returned to his polite smile and continued. Well, that's fine. It seems that everyone who this doesn't involve has already left. He looked around as he said this. Indeed, the only people who remained in the classroom were Ren, Ronald, and his entourage. All the other students were heading home or heading to their clubs. Perhaps they'd left earlier than usual, not wanting to get involved in whatever Ronald was scheming. Ronald took one more step towards Ren before speaking once more. Bright, you're an exchange student all the way from Liberl. From what I heard, you coming to Calvart had nothing to do with your family's circumstances, or moving, or anything else of the sort. You've come purely to study at Aramis. Truly, I admire your craving for knowledge, that true intellectual spirit. His tone becoming a bit dramatic, Ronald continued. However, I'm worried for your well-being, sweet Bright. Surely living all alone in a foreign country is a frightening experience. You've no one to rely on, yet surely you'll have to go through all sorts of hardships all on your own. Therefore, I'd begun to think, perhaps you need a benefactor, a guardian even. Hearing Ronald's daring proclamation, Ren narrowed her eyes. I see, so you wish to invite me into your little clique. Ronald beamed. His father was a member of the Republican Congress. Thus, Ronald himself also held some influence. Using that influence, Ronald had built up a small faction of his own, and had now become the primary candidate for the student council election that was to be held in a few weeks. Surely, if he could bring Ren, the most popular girl in school, into his faction, then his victory would be all but assured. Trust me, Bright, this is a prime opportunity for you as well. Come under my wing, and the rest of your school life will be a breeze. Given that you're an exchange student, your position at this school will differ greatly, depending on whether or not you have some protection. Ren couldn't help but think that it really was a prime opportunity. If she entered a well-positioned group, gathering information from within the school would become a much easier task. Not to mention that Ronald's father was a congressman. If she could make such a connection, she'd have a much easier time operating in general. Ronald, without even knowing Ren's true motives, had granted her an almost perfectly appealing offer. Ren returned Ronald's polite smile and said in a light voice, My apologies, but I have no interest in such an offer. She refused bluntly. Ronald's eyebrows twitched along with his smile. His entire entourage also seemed upset. Clearly, this wasn't the answer they had anticipated. Just a moment, Bright. Think about it. Surely someone as smart as you should realize just how meritorious such an offer is. Are you really okay with just letting it slip away? You'll surely come to regret it. Ronald's tone became much harsher. His entourage, which had been merely standing back calmly up until now, slowly came forward to intimidate Ren. Yet, even in the face of this, she remained as calm as ever. It's certainly an appealing offer. In fact, I'd even be happy to help someone win the election. But, well, that's on the sole condition that the one I'm helping isn't you. What did you just say? Suddenly provoked, Ronald's voice was filled with rage, yet Ren deflected his anger with her own calm expression. Come now, don't you want to know my reason, Griffith? I know just who it was that was saying all that filth about me this morning. It was you and your lackeys, all behind my back. Oh, but don't think I've only just noticed today. You and your little friends have always been regurgitating such drivel, even since before the Liberal Arts Festival. Ronald and his group were flustered by this accusation. Ren took their failure to respond as a silent recognition of the truth, and continued speaking. Perhaps what you're trying here isn't wrong. I know that I've been standing out a bit too much recently, and I have aimed to avoid that myself. I think it's a brilliant strategy to try and turn the biggest threat to your faction into your ally. But such a strategy will never work if your threat notices your hostility towards them. Therefore, if I were to team up with such unskilled people who would make such an elementary mistake, I'm sure I'd grow bored. Ren simply gave a sigh and a shrug, but Ronald was quivering with anger. Well then, everyone, I hope you'll have a good evening. While Ronald continued to frantically think of a retort, Ren simply ignored him and his friends, gracefully exiting the classroom past them. Oh, but Mom won't stop using agate to test everything she can think of. He was completely exhausted this time. He got a ton of great data thanks to his sacrifice, but still. I'm glad to hear that Auntie Erica's as energetic as ever. That night, Ren was alone in her dorm room, yet she was entirely wrapped up in her remote conversation with Tita. Still though, that's as far as your stories with him ever go. I'd love it if you two would start acting a bit more like a proper hopeless couple, like my dear brother and sister. Well, we're still... He did promise to go out with me, though. Oh, my. I'm happy to hear that you're finally becoming a proper adult. But, Ren, could you not? While Ren had begun studying abroad in Calvard, Tita had just graduated from Thor's and was returning to Liberl. The two friends were in unfortunately different positions. Both feeling lonely without the other, they decided to chat like this at least once a week. It had become a fun event to look forward to for the both of them, where they could talk about their new lives in different places and the fruit of their own research and investigations. And about that trouble between the Epstein Foundation and Vern, it seems that they might have a lawsuit on their hands. Oh, I really hope it doesn't come to that. Both friends, though separated by many arge, furrowed their brows in unison. Recently, there had been no shortage of troubles thanks to Calvard's very own Vern Company. Last year, after the situation around Crossbell's re-independence calmed down and the dust had settled, Professor Erica, as a representative of the ZCF, had invited the Vern Company to join the new West Samuria Technology Federation. However, their response was, as Erica had somewhat anticipated, a refusal. Just when Erica and the other members of the Technological Union began making preparations to win Vern over, an incident occurred that tore any chances of unity to shreds. The Vern Company announced its independent development of the next generation of combat ordnance, meaning that, while up until then they had been co-developing it in conjunction with the Epstein Foundation, Vern removed the Epstein Foundation from the system and began development on their own. Ever since the Orbital Revolution, Epstein had lended its expertise to any country that had wished it. The Epstein Foundation had been foundational to the development of all combat ordnance, being considered the leading organization of the technology up until this point. For example, before the Great War, they'd worked alongside the Reinford Group to develop the Arcus and Arcus II, never being separated from the project. It's for that reason that such an unprecedented announcement rocked the entire technological world. Naturally, the Epstein Foundation, which had been completely removed from the project without their consent, was greatly displeased. It was a situation that deeply concerned their rights as a company, as well as threatened their long-standing position as the hegemon of the industry. After a number of fruitless attempts at negotiating, it seemed that things would be coming to a head in a large-scale international lawsuit. However, looking at where things stand now, I honestly think Vern has the upper hand going into the trial. It had been announced that this new 6th-generation combat orbment would be vastly different from the existing Ramda units, thus constituting a new technological standard. Sounds like every facet of the orbment will incorporate some sort of unique feature or new technology. It's even rumored that it'll have some features that won't be known to the public. I'm really interested in those, but What are they thinking, proceeding into such territory without the Foundation? I guess Vern's pouring all their resources into arms development at the behest of the Republic's government, but still. Yes, it's likely they're planning some sort of large-scale company overhaul. On the surface, they're claiming that they're actually scaling back their military, but there's no doubt it's merely a cover to replace existing resources with much stronger ones. Following the Great War, the Empire was forced to, as per the terms of the peace treaty, reduce their military to around the size of the Republic's. However, given those circumstances, if the Republic were to hypothetically undergo a large-scale weapons upgrade, the balance of power would be tilted once more. There are quite a few interesting pieces moving around in the shadows. I'd rather like to go to Vern's home city and ascertain the situation with my own eyes. And there's still no information coming out about Professor Hamilton, I assume. Yes, it still sounds like he's working on his research in Eastern Zemuria, but each time Grandpa and Mom try to contact him, they get nothing in response. Well, communication networks likely still haven't been established where he is. Nothing we can do about that. Though if he's anywhere near as smart as the rest of the three disciples, it'd be rather relieving to get his help. It sure would. Lately we've been hearing some pretty disturbing rumors coming out of these private military companies. I wonder if things would still be turning out like this had Hamilton remained as an advisor to the Vern Company. The topic had slowly started to bring down Tita's spirits. In the past year, Western Zemuria had once more experienced the stability it hadn't felt in some time, finally enjoying peace and prosperity. However, one couldn't shake the feeling that this peace had been built on a foundation of thin ice. I read that line already. A great number of concerns had begun to arise, especially in the rapid evolving field of technology. No matter how much we brood over this, nothing will change. For now, we just need to do all we can from our present positions. That's why I'm here in the Republic, and that's why you're giving it your all over there. Right now we have a mountain of problems to sort through, but I don't think there's any reason to be overly pessimistic. Am I wrong? Ren? No, you're right. Thanks. They continued to chat late into the night, to the point where neither even noticed it until it had already passed midnight. It's already this late? I guess I should get going. See you later, Ren. Yeah, have a good night, Tita. Yeah, have a good night. At that moment, it seemed that Tita had suddenly remembered something, and thus called out to Ren before she could end their communications. Oh yeah, before we meet up, Big Sis told me to ask you whether you're doing well in school or not. I make sure to contact Estelle and the others regularly, yet they're still this worried about me. For but a moment, Ren remembered her encounter with Ronald after class, but decided it was a minor incident and waved it aside. I'm doing splendidly. There's nothing to be worried about. Got it. She also told me to, tell you, if you're ever getting bullied at school, let us know and we'll rush right over. Estelle. She's still so overprotective. She should know there's no need. No, it's not that. I think she said something like, I'd be worried for the life of the bully. Her face adorned with such shock, Ren was at a loss for words. Tita couldn't help but laugh seeing her friend making such a face. That really is the sort of thing she would be worried about. That's rather rude, don't you think? Even if something like that were to happen, I wouldn't do anything too terrible. I'm not quite the same as when I was a child. Back then you probably would've... I'm a young lady now, Tita. It's better to handle most situations with dignity and forgiveness. I don't really know how it's possible for you to lie low, Ren. Anyway, I guess we really should be going now. Oh yeah, but if you do happen to run across Zin, tell him we all miss him. Yes, I plan to pay him a visit once things have calmed down on my end. He's done so much for us, I'd quite like to see him once more. Once more they had fallen into a long conversation, although unintentionally. Finally, sometime after the day had already switched, they finally hung up and ended their little girl's chat. The following day, in Aramis High School's main schoolhouse. During lunch break, Ren decided to leave the classroom and begin down the stairs. However, she suddenly felt something close behind her, and instinctively moved aside. It was a fellow student, a girl, who came into view. She had across her face the same shocked and fearful expression that one wears when they feel themselves lose their balance and their feet begin to slip. She passed right by where Ren had been, but her momentum continued to drag her down. If no one stopped her, she'd end up falling down the stairs. Ren immediately reached out and grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her towards her. The girl, who had just been tumbling, came to a stop supported by Ren's hand, which was outstretched in a position not unlike that of a ballroom dancer's. A handful of nearby students saw these events unfold and couldn't help but let out a sigh of admiration. Seeing the girl was still out of it, Ren called out to her gently. "Is everything alright? Are you uninjured?" Suddenly realizing what had happened, the girl quickly stood upright and responded to Ren's display of sympathy, her face growing the slightest bit red. No. I'm not clicking X fast enough. Yes. I don't appear to be harmed. You're Bright from the next class over, yes? You really saved me there. I can't thank you enough. It was nothing at all. That said, I get the feeling you were in a hurry at the top of the stairs. Is something the matter? The girl kneaded her eyebrows in thought at the question. No, I wasn't really... That's not... It just suddenly felt like someone had pushed me from behind. No, I'm probably overthinking things. Probably just bumped into each other as we passed by. Thanking Ren once more, the girl departed. However, Ren couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. Just a coincidence, huh? No, if I hadn't made it in time, she would have fallen down the stairs and been seriously injured. Though perhaps I was their target from the beginning. If that's the case... It was hard to say that she had a solid ground for her suspicions, but she could certainly feel that something was amiss at that time. She'd grown used to the feeling of having a malicious gaze directed at her from afar. It would take a much shorter time than she'd anticipated for her baseless conjecture to become the certain truth. The following day, Ren returned to the classroom from phys ed with her classmates. However, as she began to prepare for her next class, she noticed something strange. It was, for a student, a rather dire situation. Glue had been smothered over the sides of all of her textbooks. Obviously, such an impairment made the books unable to be opened properly. This was a clear demonstration of intentional harassment. And on top of that, it was clear who the responsible party was. She could hear Ronald Griffith, who she'd rejected just 2 days prior, standing and grinning with his entourage not too far away. They all laughed at her as they watched her misfortune unfold. He's not even trying to make an attempt to hide it. No, it's not even that. He wants me to know, as a way to intimidate me. Of course, it was now certain that the previous day's incident at the stairway had been their doing as well. Their motives, likewise, were easy to understand. So long as Ren refused to join his faction, she, being such a standout student, was a threat to his election campaign. In order to secure his odds of victory, he'd attempt to embarrass her until she yielded to his demands. It didn't even matter to him that Ren had no intention of running in the election. I should be able to fix it up with ease, but that will take some time. Having taken a moment to examine the textbook, Ren took on a slightly doubtful expression. And so, the bell rang and class began. Throughout class, Ren left the textbook on her desk, but didn't make any further attempts to open it. Seeing as much the teacher was displeased, she called on Ren to speak so as to make an example of her. "Miss Bright, please read the next paragraph." Ronald and his friends let out a derisive chuckle. Surely they were imagining the coming scene of the teacher harshly scolding her. However, reality didn't play out quite as they'd hoped. Without the slightest amount of panic in her expression, Rean began reading aloud, line for line, word for word, just as it was written in the textbook. Yet her textbook remained closed, and there was no way she was looking at another student's. "Miss Bright, have you memorized the entire textbook?" Even the homeroom teacher was shocked. "Yes, I've been preparing the text well in advance. Isn't such diligence natural for a student of Aramis?" Both the teachers and the other students couldn't help but gasp in both surprise and admiration of Ren's perfect response. Ronald and his cohorts, on the other hand, ground their teeth bitterly at this development. And the next day, as Rean was en route to school. As Rean passed the front gate and was about to enter the school building with a crowd of students, she noticed a pungent odor drifting from above and looked up to find the source. Just as she did, part of the railing around the school building's roof broke off and began to fall down, right on top of her. Seeing this, the surrounding students began to scream in terror. I can avoid it with ease, but... The piece of railing that was crashing down at them was more than 2 arcs long. It would certainly end up injuring a number of the surrounding students. Assessing the situation, Rean reached for the combat ornament she kept hidden in her school bag. Airstrike! With a short recitation of the art's name, a sphere of wind appeared before Rean and went flying upwards. Rean had toned down the strength of the orbital art so it was just enough to offset the railing's momentum without sending it flying. With a small hop, she was able to catch it with ease. The stench really wasn't some random accident. It was the unmistakable smell of a plant-like monster's bodily fluids. Their fluids are capable of corroding metal as if the damage were natural, and thus could even be used as a dissolving agent in some situations. In other words, this was an intentional attack designed as a natural occurrence. Given that Rean was the target, the culprit's objective was obvious. The same malicious glare targeting Rean from the shadows likewise served to prove this theory. However, that glare wasn't the only attention she was receiving. Whoa! That was amazing! Hey, did you just see that? Rean, you're ridiculous! While Rean was lost in thought, a swell of cheers formed around her. Just like an artist having completed her performance, Rean gave an elegant curtsy to her spectators. The harassment didn't stop there. However, Rean continued to evade each onslaught with grace, garnering more and more attention with each incident. This state of affair carried on for several days, until one day Ronald, fed up with how things were going, finally called Rean behind the schoolhouse. He and his entourage were all present. He wore a frustrated expression, completely different from the polite and composed demeanor he had expressed a few days prior. Let me give it to you straight, Rean Bright. You're in my way! He had no will to uphold any pretenses, his normal gentlemanly demeanor having completely vanished. My, it's quite regrettable to hear that from my own classmates. Don't play dumb with me. I've poured so much time and mirror into building up my influence at this school. And yet you think you can just stroll on in here and show me up. Now, of all times, it's painfully obvious you're trying to get in the way of my ambitions. Rean kept her cool in front of Ronald's obnoxious fury. I suppose you only have yourself to blame for that. It was only because of Ronald trying to cause her so much grief that Rean ended up standing out so much. With this fact pointed out to him, Ronald clicked his tongue in regret. That's besides the point. I won't tolerate your presence any longer. I'd like you to exit the stage for a while. And what exactly is that supposed to mean? As if he'd finally regained the upper hand, Ronald smirked once more. Oh, nothing in particular. Just don't come to school on election day. That's all I want. And if I were to refuse? With a wave of Ronald's hand, his entourage circled around Ren. They were all well-built home. Ronald's friends began cracking their knuckles. My goodness, we're at school, aren't we? Is it really proper to do something like this? Ren spoke in an astonished manner, but Ronald took her to be panicking and spoke pleasantly. Now just who would be snooping around behind the schoolhouse? Even if someone did happen to see, I'm sure my father would use his connections to deal with them. Besides, I'm sure they'd much prefer to pretend they'd seen nothing. Everyone in this school knows how things stand. Except for you, apparently. Ren let out an instinctive sigh, seeing his obnoxious smirk. Seems this boy's in need of a little discipline. Though I did promise Tita earlier that I wouldn't be too showy with it. Well, I suppose it's my only choice now. Let's just think of this as an opportune moment. Oblivious to what Ren was truly thinking, Ronald continued his speech. Now, do as I say, Ren Bright! Ronald's friends began coming closer to Ren, ready to hold her down. I'll have to be careful not to go overboard, but I'll make sure you suffer just a tiny bit. Sorry. I'll have to be careful not to go overboard, but I'll make sure you suffer just a tiny bit. If it'll get you to reflect on your actions, then I'm sure Estelle won't mind too much. It was just as Ren had determined her course of action that a voice had called out. Stop it, please! It was a young woman's voice calling from the school building. Of course, the person they were yelling at wasn't Ren, but Ronald and his friends. Wait, aren't you? Ronald's frustration appeared once more. The girl had a twinge of fear in her voice, but she stood resolute regardless. I just happened to be passing by, but I heard a bit of your conversation. This is wrong! Please stop and reconsider! The girl stepped towards Ronald as she spoke, apparently to get between him and Ren. Stepping out from the shadow of the schoolhouse, her hair gleamed softly in the afternoon sunlight. Ren had seen this girl before. She was a first-year student who lived in the dorm room next to hers. They would greet each other when passing in the hallway, but they weren't especially close. She seemed to be a quiet and reserved girl from a good family, so Ren was surprised by the strong will she displayed in trying to help her. Ronald was equally as surprised. Clearly he thought Ren was the only student who dared to stand against him. Despite his shock, he looked at the blonde girl standing in his way, up and down, giving a cruel smile. I see. So I'm wrong, am I? By your looks, you're, what, a first year? Perhaps you're in need of a little lesson before Bright. Think a bit more carefully about what you think this society deems right and wrong. At Ronald's words, the thugs rushed to surround the blonde girl. The girl began quaking in fear of the looming threat, but she stood her ground nonetheless. Knock it off at once! Ren demanded of them. I'll do what you want, so cease this immediately. Miss Bright? Perfect. The girl was surprised by Ren's concession, but Ronald gave a content smile. I won't come to school for a few days. Is that good enough? Miss Bright, please don't! Being an exchange student is tougher than I'd expected. It's been quite exhausting, so honestly I could use a break myself. Ren explained to the girl who'd come to help her, hoping to calm her down. Ronald, at the other hand, was ecstatic at his victory. So you finally learned your place, Ren Bright. Works for me. If you just behave yourself for a few days, my job will become much easier. Hell, I'll even overlook this first year's transgressions. Saying as much, Ronald turned to his entourage in high spirits. I'll see you around, Bright. Next time we meet, this school will already belong to me. Leaving the pair with those words, Ronald and his gang departed. The two remained behind the school building, the younger girl looking over Ren with concern. I'm doing fine, but I appreciate your consideration. Saying as much, Ren gave the girl a kind smile. The following day, Ren Bright fell ill and began a hiatus from school. A few days later, the whole student body gathered in the auditorium. It was finally time for the Aramis High School Student Council election. Given Aramis's focus on student autonomy, the Student Council held a great deal of power. They were even in charge of organizing certain events, such as the academic festival that had been held in the capital, and happened each spring. While they wielded great power over many operations, they were in turn held responsible and evaluated for their performance. Such evaluations even had value after graduation. It was for this reason that many students ran with high hopes for the prestigious position. That's what made this year such an anomaly. For some reason, rival candidates had dropped out one by one, until only Ronald and his clique remained. Does it not look good if I win by a vote of confidence? Ronald and his friends chuckled quietly as they awaited the results. The other candidates didn't even attempt to campaign. It was safe to say that Ronald's victory was already secured. It was time for Ronald's campaign speech. He stood in a tall, gentlemanly manner, affecting his voice with the same proud style of speech that his father would use. The actual content was thought out and well written on top of that. It was all around a solid performance. Every now and then a boast would slip out, but that was little concern given that his opponents didn't even have proper speeches. Well then everyone, please have a look at the screen. A few years prior, a large screen had been installed behind the podium Ronald was using. It was often used for lectures or even for the occasional recreational movie screening. One could argue that the reason the school even had such a screen was because of Calvart's development on oral films. In past years, candidates had used the screen to provide visual aids to their speeches, displaying relevant pictures. This year, however, Ronald intended to take things a step further. Utilizing the screen, he displayed a promotional video. It wasn't one that seemed like it could be made using by some independent student, but one that was made by a large film company instead. It must have cost a great deal of mira. Having been professionally made, it was nearly perfect. The election had practically already been won before Ronald even stepped on stage. With this video, there was no doubt. The video was worthy of the elite trajectory Ronald envisioned for himself. Believing as much with all of his heart, Ronald pressed play. The video began with heart-pounding opening music, after which Ronald's visage appeared on screen and began speaking. So, how much do you want? Come on, lend me your support and you can get all the mirror you want. Huh? However, the video being projected was completely different from the one Ronald had prepared. Instead, it was a recording of himself, just a few days prior, paying off a rival candidate. With Ronald shocked into inaction, the video advanced to the next scene. Now, if you don't want something bad to happen, just drop out of the election, won't you? Or would you prefer a hospital bed to your dorm bed? Once again, he was shocked to see himself on screen, this time from when he had threatened an opponent with violence. But now, Ronald understood what had happened. Somebody had replaced the film he had prepared. To nobody's surprise, there was an uproar amongst the students. Ronald scrambled around shouting, trying to cover it up. No, this is complete nonsense. Clearly there's something wrong. Someone's trying to slander me. As if waiting for those exact words, a girl's voice echoed from the auditorium's entrance. It's rather unfortunate, but what you see before you is the absolute truth. The voice was just as clear and confident as it was enchanting. A girl with flowing violet hair. Sorry, lost my line. A girl with flowing violet hair slowly advanced from the entrance towards the podium, speaking as she approached. Bribing voters, threatening violence against your opponents, and finally bullying and attempting to injure other students. Ronald Griffith, your sins are laid bare. Before he knew it, the girl had come up onto the podium and now stood face to face with him. All the students' eyes were glued to the scene, as if Ren was the dignified main protagonist, finally making her entrance on stage. Ren, right? Why won't you stop getting in my way? Ronald let out a cry of muffled rage. Ren, on the other hand, making her debut into the school following many days of absence, responded with grace. If anyone's getting in anyone else's way, I believe that would be you, Ronald. You've shamelessly disgraced this momentous election with countless acts of misconduct. Saying this, Ren turned not to Ronald, but to the students, gesturing for them all to watch his crimes unfold on screen. Sometimes the students would frown. At other points, they'd put on a sympathetic expression. At some scenes, they'd go completely silent. In the end, they were all left with one collective emotion. Rage. All of it directed at Ronald. We've only been classmates for a short while, but it still pains me to say this to a fellow student. Yet regardless of my own feelings, it must be said. Ronald Griffith, you aren't fit to be on the student council. No, beyond that, you are not fit to have any place in the honorable and prestigious history of our great Aramis High School. Ren's speech was but the first in a barrage of anger and blame towards Ronald. Hell yeah! Stop smearing the good name of our school! We'll never forgive a punk like you! It wasn't just thanks to Ren's accusations. None of the students were oblivious to how Ronald conducted himself every day. Out of fear for his father's authority and connections, no one had been ever able to put a stop to him. Finally, all of that pent-up anger spilled forth. Enduring a hail of jeers, Ronald looked over to his entourage for help, yet none of them would meet his gaze. In that moment, it struck Ronald that the castle he'd spent so long building for himself was made of sand. With his eyes filled with hatred and his heart filled with despair, Ronald rushed away from the podium. Everyone cheered at the sight of him fleeing, flustered and afraid, out of the auditorium. It wasn't until that evening that Ren, having stayed late to help deal with the mess caused by all the election day turmoil, finally left the school grounds. She walked part of the way back to her dormitory, but then took a detour down an unfamiliar road where she arrived at a quiet park. I assume here's fine. There's no one to get in our way, so you can come on out. At Ren's words, Ronald, who Ren hadn't seen since his escape earlier that afternoon, appeared with about a dozen men backing him up. The men weren't the same entourage of students that always followed Ronald around at school. These men all wore gaudy clothes and had vicious expressions. They clearly weren't in any polite line of work. Most likely, they were some sort of low-tier organized crime group. My, Griffith, you have quite a few shady friends, don't you? I suppose it's about time to begin the party. Today's the last day you ever look at me with that damn smug expression, Ren Bright. My aspirations to become an elite politician, my bright future, you've taken it all away from me. What the hell am I supposed to say to my father? I don't really know, Griffith. Wouldn't it be best if you cleaned up your own act before going to him? Hearing Ren's unshaken tone, Ronald's entire body shook with rage as he shouted, I'll never forgive you, you hear me? I'm tired of keeping up appearances. You stupid bitch. I don't care what happens to you. I can clean it up all later. Do whatever the hell you want to her. At Ronald's command, the men all started rushing in. But just a few moments later, they couldn't believe their eyes. Ronald couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Surely he'd seen it, but his brain couldn't process it. The moment he'd issued his command, the petite girl in front of him suddenly brought out a massive golden scythe, seemingly as from nowhere. And if that wasn't strange enough, what followed after made it feel like if he was dreaming. It was like a cat toying with a mouse that couldn't escape. Except the cat was the small girl with the scythe. The mice, the dozen grown men that were left scattered to the floor. First, the men were confident as they moved in to surround her, but then quickly came to realize the insurmountable difference in ability when, with a single motion, Ren's scythe cut down half their friends in less than 10 seconds flat. It could hardly be called a fight. The rats scrambled and ran in fear as the kitten chased them around with joy. At times, she'd pretend to let them escape, allowing them a brief moment of relief, before crushing it all underfoot by instantly catching up once more. They'd repeat this process over and over, until the mouse would get too exhausted to keep running, and join the others fainted on the ground. One by one, the men fell until it was only Ren and Ronald left standing. What the fuck? What did you... How did... This isn't real! Ronald couldn't accept the reality before his own eyes. Ren, like a child who still wanted to play more, slowly approached him. Those men were still too inexperienced. They're no fun to play with at all. Please stay calm. I haven't slaughtered them all quite yet. Ren looked away from the men, directing her attention to Ronald. Now then, Griffith, why don't we play together for a bit? Her words sent chills down Ronald's spines. In his eyes, Ren had become nothing more than a horrific monster wearing a girl's skin. Don't come anywhere near me. My dad's a congressman, you know. If you do anything to me, don't think he'll ever forgive you. Hearing this, Ren looked down at Ronald with pity in her eyes and tossed him a magazine. Here, why don't you read today's gossip column? Huh? Ronald had no clue what she meant, but the moment he looked at the front cover of the magazine, he turned deathly pale. The headline, Congressman Griffith involved in massive bribery scandal, possible connections to criminal organizations, adorned the front cover in bold letters. They put together a special report, gathering all manner of evidence. It would seem the CID has already decided on the results of their investigation. I wonder, will he still be in Congress by the end of the day tomorrow? My condolences. Ronald was so shocked that he couldn't even form words anymore. But Ren held no intention to just let him off now. But let's not go on and on about your father. How about we have some fun together? Just the two of us. Holding her scythe to the side, Ren approached Ronald with a sadistic grin. He tried to flee, but ended up tripping on a small stone and falling over. As if beholding the slow but inevitable approach of the Grim Reaper, Ronald looked up at Ren with tears flowing from his eyes and snot running from his nose. Please, engrave this memory into your soul. This is what happens when you mess with Ren. Ren raised the scythe above her head, ready to swing it down, but following the moment where Ronald's life flashed before his eyes, he was shocked at what he had heard. My, that just won't do. It seems I let that old habit of mine slip out. Ren covered her mouth with one hand, blushing ever so slightly. It seemed that in her excitement, she began acting as she did when she was a child. That wasn't befitting of a young lady. By the time Ren calmed herself down, Ronald had already passed out. It seems we're finished here. As she left the park, she heard the voice of a calm young man calling out to her. Yeah, more or less. Ren looked over to where the response had come from. Leaning against a tree was a tan young man standing quietly. It seemed he'd been watching everything in the park unfold. Who's this guy? The man glanced into the park, clearly impressed. Nice work. Oh, which one? Both, of course. Your combat proficiency as the Angel of Slaughter and your hacking skills as Kitty. They're both pretty impressive. Not to mention that it's crazy how easily you were able to uncover the wrongdoings of a big-name congressman just like that. However, Ren didn't boast of her own talents. That's just because the orbital network's still insecure. Perhaps that can't be helped since it's now beginning to experience popular use, but governments and megacorporations should really be more careful. You make it sound like you have experience with their security. I wonder. Ren faced back towards the young man with a smile. Though I must say I'm impressed with you. You managed to pin down the perfect evidence, and then write such a tremendous article in such a short time. I'm quite impressed that Miss Lin decided to introduce us. Well, I am a pro reporter, aren't I? That's just my job. Sorry, that's his name. Okay. The young man's name was Dingo Brad, and he worked as a writer for a gossip magazine. He was a talented journalist who was willing to get mixed in with all sorts of dangerous situations in order to find a good scoop. On top of that, his network information was top-notch. Meeting through their mutual friend Grace, Ren and Dingo had struck a deal a few days earlier. He'd worked to collect evidence on Ronald's crimes at school, while Ren had put her hacking talents to use collecting evidence on his father's crimes as a politician. Thanks to the excellent results of their partners' snooping, both parties were able to achieve the outcome they were looking for. They did get some help from some friends, though. They all whined like, oh, it's such a pain to dig up some dirt on some congressman's lazy son, blah. But in the end, they got paid off. All the info they grabbed paid off. Oh, I suppose it's to be expected of a journalist to have so many friends to call on. Finally, it explained the feeling that she had someone was moving in the shadows besides Dingo, while Ren had been resting. Thinking about her hunch, she continued the conversation. At any rate, it seems that you managed to get that article into the magazine without any interference. Well, it's not like Congressman Griffith's the current administration's favorite dude. They probably let me put the story out since it doesn't get in the way of the president's faction. It makes the CID look like they're doing something good for once. I see. If that old Taito user's in charge of the case, then everything should be fine. Well, I suppose I'm a bit discontent with the fact that she was just using me indirectly, but I'll allow it to pass this time. After this, Dingo raised a question. Gotta say, little miss, I'm a bit stumped by what exactly you wanted out of this whole thing. Were you really that interested in this boy? They both cast a sidelong glance at Ronald, still lying unconscious in the park. Ren, however, simply shrugged. No, not really. In truth, I hadn't intended for things to come this far. I was intending on teaching him a lesson without getting directly involved, but... At that moment, Ren remembered the younger girl who had run to her aid. If this boy had become the student council president, it would have been terrible for my cute little underclassman. She said as much with a refined smile. Just as Ren had predicted, Congressman Griffith resigned on suspicions of fraud. Ronald, likewise, dropped out of Aramis of his own accord. His faction that had once done as they pleased throughout the school naturally dissipated, and Aramis High School was at peace once more. However, one thing didn't quite go the way Ren had expected. President, here's the paperwork for next month's budget. A young blonde-haired girl, the new General Affairs Manager, handed a stack of papers over to the newly elected student body president of Aramis High School, Ren Bright. She skimmed over the documents. On the day of the election, most of the candidates dropped out following Ronald's flight from the auditorium. Regardless, a vote was held, but over 70% of the votes were deemed invalid. That's because each one of them had written in the name of a candidate who wasn't even in the running. The school tried to avoid interfering with student affairs due to their academic philosophy of student freedom, but now they feared a massive outcry of displeasure, given their failure to deal with Ronald. The teachers, searching for a way to appease the student body, swiftly moved to hold negotiations with Ren. With all of their urging, she ultimately had no choice but to accept this role. The student council work was easy enough for Ren to manage, though it was a big departure from her initial plans of remaining graceful yet humble and avoiding standing out. There's nothing I can do to help it. I'd heard from Tita that he'd somehow ended up as student council president at the Thor's Branch campus. I wonder if he felt the same. What's done is done. I may as well put this position to good use. Warm sunlight filtered into the student council room as the blonde-haired girl and her two friends struggled to figure out all sorts of unfamiliar tasks. Ren sat there listening to their occasional complaints and friendly small talk, thinking to herself. Constant innovations and fears in the world of technology, the future movements of the society, something brewing that would soon envelop the entire nation of Calvard. There was no shortage of worries to be had, but for now, maybe it wouldn't be too bad to just sit by and enjoy her school life. Well then, everyone, let's wrap up today's work quickly so we can enjoy some tea. The spring breeze had already passed, yet summer's warm days had not yet arrived either. It was a bright, ordinary afternoon. We did it. We survived. But we've got one more thread to connect. And so, the girl with sword in hand presses forward, beyond the Genesis. Septine calendar, year 1207, September. I'm sorry, but I cannot accept. I flatly refused. Upon hearing what I said, the sturdy and bear-like senior bracer, Zinvathek, had a troubled expression. Same response again, huh? Said this before, but isn't it time you resign yourself to this and accept it? Zin is a very respected senior bracer, whose strength and character stands out among all of us. When I was just a junior bracer, Zin had been the one who had guided and took care of me. That's why I didn't want to make things harder for him, but unfortunately, these are two completely different issues. I've also said this many times already. My strength and experience are not at the level of an A-rank bracer. I'm sorry, but I have to refuse once again. Bracers are ranked according to their strength and achievements, with A rank being the highest listed rank. Just by being an A rank makes you feel like you're carrying the entire weight of the guild. It's for this reason you must adhere strictly to the qualifications when appointing someone to this rank. And honestly, I still don't know why I was given a promotion to A rank half a year ago. It's been a few years since I graduated from school and joined the Bracer Guild. I've been improving and getting stronger at my own pace. I've also completed many requests, so it's not like I'm a novice. But I can't say for sure I'm qualified for a promotion to A rank. Although I refused the recommendation, Lemon Headquarters would not stop pestering me, such as asking about what my aspirations are or what I want to do. I honestly don't know how many times they've asked this already or if they're ever going to stop. As far as I can see it, you have the talents to excel in the world as an A-rank bracer. So why do you still reject the offer? I feel that Leman Headquarters forced Zin to try and persuade me to accept the promotion. Zin just sat there, forcing a smile and crossing his arms over his chest, head tilted with a perplexed look on his face. I think you might be praising me overmuch. I don't want to be in the spotlight as much as I am now. In fact, not only have I been invited to star in a movie, I've been requested to model for some magazine. The guild's been super patient with me while I continuously reject their offers, but if I actually do enough to achieve an A-rank promotion down the line, I wouldn't know what I would do. So that's how it is it? Your recent successes coupled with your pretty appearances must have captured quite of unwanted attention recently, huh? Seems like you've been getting a lot more fans lately as well. Why not just accept the offer to star in the movie? Maybe you can snag an award at a film exhibition. Zin began to laugh as he joked. Sometimes Zin just loves to joke around to unnerve people. Oh please, don't joke around like that. I'm not exactly bothered by the attention, but in the end, I'm still a bracer. I'm not qualified to do all these things. I'm not joking. You know, if you don't relax every once in a while, you're gonna stumble in a critical moment. For someone as serious as you need to relax a bit. I don't exactly agree that I'm an uptight, serious person, but his words do have some truth to them. Anyway, we seem to have deviated a bit from our conversation. There's something that's been on my mind for some time. Why does the guild want to promote me to an A rank? Let's put it this way. Thanks to the reparations Erebonian's been paying for, Calvard has seen unprecedented growth and prosperity. Everyone across Lemuria is flocking towards Calvard to try and strike it rich. I may not be one for economics, but when Mira begins to circulate heavily, more and more people join in. And when that happens, tensions grow. That's the kind of situation we're dealing with right now. I start to see what Zin's getting at, and decide to add a few words of my own. So it's because of the boom that a lot of these issues begin to spring up. Corporations are fighting each other, Jaegers and PMCs have become more active, smaller gangs and mafia have begun to fight out in the open, and orders breaking down as a result. Yeah, the situation's only going to get worse before it gets better. That's why Le Mans trying to strengthen our presence in Calvard. One of those initiatives is to promote you, our ace and shining star of the young generation, to an A rank. With people like you out in the public, we should be swimming in new recruits. And with your talents, you should be able to stand up against any threats that stand in your path. I've sort of become aware that that's the case, but is it really the reason? If so, if that is the case, then you should have accepted that offer. The recommendation for S rank. A recommendation to become an S rank bracer? If we're talking about maintaining control, then having an S rank here in Calvard would be a lot more impactful than some new A rank. When Zin heard what I said, he just awkwardly scratched his head. Alright, compare my skills and achievements versus Cassius. He has me beaten everything. How can I say I'm an S rank compared to that? And the S rank title is more ceremonial, anyway. Do you think an old man like me will get us some new recruits? Doesn't matter how strong you are, how much you've achieved, or how fit you are. Our job as a bracer is to protect the citizens and the peace. That alone should be fulfilling, yes? I confidently replied. Well, I'm in no position to talk for other people, so I'm not going to pester you anymore with this. But if you do change your mind, just let me know. And with that, our talk about the promotion ended here. Zin began to head out to take care of the requests he accepted. Everything is still fine. I'm still me. There was a time when I felt like I wanted to be a different person. I don't remember when it was, but it was definitely when I was still a small child. At that time, I realized just how small my world was. So I longed, prayed, hoped that I would become a different person. There was a time when I felt I had changed into a different person. It was an unforgettable memory when I was in school. An unexpected reunion, receiving an important object. I felt closer to the ideal me. However, that was just an illusion. There was nothing left in my hands after I let go. I failed to become a different person. However, I still felt that I should move forward. Even if my family is against me, I'll insist on choosing my own fate. But on this path, I still haven't found anything similar to the past that I long for. I just don't want to be anyone at all. Forward, forward, forward. I can only think of moving forward. Oh, hey, welcome. I walked into a cafe that I frequent a lot. The bartender greeted me with the usual wink and wave. He was a tall man who had a unique style of dress and loves to take care of other people. I've been to the Crossbell branch a few times to help out, and I have to say that the receptionist there and him have a ton of similarities. They should definitely meet one day. I walked up to the bar and took a seat near the counter. There doesn't seem to be many people today. The bartender came up to me with a smile and asked, "The usual, I take it?" I usually come here after I finish my bracer duties for the day. Usually I get a simple meal and some coffee, but today I'm in the mood for something different. No, give me some alcohol. Beer would be fine if you have it. After hearing my vague order, the bartender went behind his counter. After a while, the bartender placed this and wants to comfort me. I thanked him with the bottom of my heart and asked about the reason why I'm even here. About that situation, has any news come in? This bartender also serves as an intelligence broker. Not only does he have connections with the Bracer Guild, but he's got informants in the mass media and underground organizations. However, there's a limit to the things we can talk about. I swing by whenever I have some intel that I need. Yes, about that. I asked Dingo, but I didn't really get a lead on anything. You're looking into some pretty dubious stuff, you know. Besides, the other party's going to get smoked out soon enough. It's just a matter of when, exactly. Is that so? The guild investigation came up short. We originally expected to have captured someone, but it seems that it isn't an easy task. Worrying about it constantly isn't going to help. You'll need to relax a bit. You still have plenty of your drink left, so just enjoy and savor it slowly. As the bartender left, I began to sip quietly as I thought deeply about the incident at hand. The root of the problem lies with the increasing amount of illegal drugs circulating. A lot of addictive and toxic goods have penetrated the market. Originally, the black market dealer Hailway were the one who controlled this market. They regulated everything about the trading of these goods, from the prices to the quantities. This isn't something we should leave unwatched, but we can't deny that it's helped maintain some sort of order within the black market. However, in the past few years, a lot of other shady organizations have begun to revolt against the norm. Our culprit is definitely among these groups. Anyway, the reason the guild decided to take on the case was because of a case of missing persons and its possible connections to these groups. Last month, the police and the guild received a request to help find 2 citizens under the age of 10, a pair of siblings. One day, they just left home, never to return. The 2 children grew up in a family of commoners. Their environment was loving and caring, so this wasn't a typical runaway case. We originally thought that the children were kidnapped and held for ransom, but the family didn't receive threatening letters or requests from Mira. The guild and the police assigned more people to take over the case, but our last few attempts were futile. They just couldn't be found. Our efforts weren't in vain, however, since it was discovered that the children were last seen in a shady part of the city, a place where the illegal drug trade was widespread. It's only speculation, but we thought the children may have seen an illegal trade happening. Then they were captured and possibly killed so that there'd be no trace. If that's the case, the longer this case goes on, the more danger these children will be in. These criminal organizations aren't dumb enough to leave ample amounts of evidence behind, however, so they could have been killed or sold abroad by now. Whatever the situation is, we would not be able to see them back safe and sound. Of course, this is all just speculation since we have no concrete evidence to back these claims. We also have no idea which organization did it, and we haven't found the base of whichever mafia was running the drug trade. The situation is a bit uncomfortable, even if we wanted to take action. We have no idea what to do or where to start. If only we could capture a suspicious person and interrogate them, we could break this impasse. But that would not only be a violation of the rules of the Bracer Guild, but also our core beliefs. If we Bracers want to become a trustworthy partner of justice, we cannot resort to using underhanded tactics. If I'm to be honest, there are incidents where Bracers alone cannot solve it all, and innocent people will inevitably be hurt. We're just in a big pinch right now. A case where Bracers alone are having a tough time. When I unconsciously said that, I began to see in my mind a person, someone with black curly hair with a blue luster, a nostalgic face, and rumors about him. A childhood friend of mine suddenly came back to the city a few years ago. He found himself a job, a questionable one at that. It seems that from time to time he ends up sticking his neck into disputes in the underworld too. Honestly, what's that idiot thinking? Leaving without permission, returning without permission. If we meet nowadays, it's just gonna be awkward between the two of us. I spent a lot of time searching for him and a lot of years waiting, just to find out he took a job in a shady business. And because of my duties as a bracer, I can't spend more time worrying about others. Besides... Since you came back, why don't you come to see me? Don't you understand just how worried I've been? The more I thought about it, the more angry I got. I threw my cocktail. The alcohol only served to make the anger boiling inside me rage more fiercely. My anger burned. It blazed. It burned ever stronger until eventually only ashes remained. Distant memories started to flash before my eyes before disappearing again. After all that, I began to feel discouraged. Why? Why did you abandon me like that? I unwittingly blurted out that line suddenly. I felt like I was a child again. What if someone saw me like this? Still thinking about the old days? A familiar voice suddenly rang out in my ears and sent shivers down my spine. I hurriedly tried to think of an excuse to explain everything. I just wanted to complain a bit, that's all. I tried to sound as calm as I could. But in reality, those few sentences weren't enough. Even a few hundred wouldn't be enough. By the way I said it, I seemed to be devoid of happiness. If you can say that much with only a few sentences, that's pretty impressive. The man with glasses seemed to see right through me. He then took a seat right next to me. I didn't have any appointment set up, so this meeting was merely a coincidence. This person is another childhood friend of mine, and older than me by a year. Although we all went down different paths, the three of us used to be thick as thieves. If you're that worried, why don't you pay him a visit? You should have at least grasped where he lives, right? How could I, after so long? When he heard me speak in a low voice like that, I felt his soft smile upon me. Forget about it. Don't worry about it. As long as we continue to strive for our own goals, we'll definitely meet again. Hearing him say that caught me by surprise. It's not like you to say something sentimental like that. Well, I'm not like that fool. Anyway, let's have a toast. You have to get a non-alcoholic drink, though. Really? You don't need to treat me like a kid anymore. Afterwards, we began to reminisce about the past. Now that I think about it, I haven't chatted like this with him for a long time. Although the two of us have drifted apart from each other, our work and our goals leave us with few opportunities to chat like this. Alright, you rejected that A-rank promotion, right? As expected of a CID officer. The news already reached your ears? Although the issue wasn't confidential, he seemed to have a firm grasp on the situation at hand, which was expected given his job. There isn't really any bad blood between the bracers, who put public safety first, and the CID, who follow the President's orders. Our positions are just fundamentally different from each other. Well, I'm not going to urge you to accept it. He quickly paused for a moment, then continued to speak with a more serious tone. But we need a hero more than ever right now. A hero? Just what does that mean? A realist like him would never say anything like this. I wanted to ask him about it, but he quickly cut to the chase. Regarding that case with the siblings, the CID is with you on this case. My other childhood friend had turned a blind eye to my startled self and continued to speak. We've got some strong evidence about a certain organization at that district. We'll be working with the police in accordance to our agreement for the case. You can do as you see fit. Finally, after all this time, we have some intel to work with. Since it's intel from the CID, there's no reason to believe it's wrong. It's finally time to make our move. Moving forward step by step, only recently was I aware that I've been standing in the same place. If I continue onward, I'll only become a different person. I can feel it deep in my heart, a very scary feeling. Fear that I may once more lose something or be hurt again. Thoughts like this make me hesitant to move forward. I don't feel like I'm very strong. That's why I'm striving to improve myself every day. Therefore, I pick up my sword and brandish it without hesitation. So if I come across an unimaginable situation, I know I can endure whatever challenges come my way. I quickly sidestep to the left and shift my center of gravity. I then make a sharp turn to the right and slash one of them with my sword. I take advantage of their confusion to charge and stab the other person. The two Mafia members cried out one by one and collapsed to the ground. These two are from the criminal organization that I've been investigating thanks to the tip-off a few days ago. And now, I'm finally going to sneak into their base. Thanks to my childhood friend's intel, we were finally able to put our full strength to use. The intel alone wasn't enough to identify their actual base. The next day, Zin and some other bracers came up with a plan. We'd split up and attack all possible bases at the same time. After seeing everything in front of me, I could tell that I'd won the lottery. I found their actual base.
Found one! Over here! It's an intruder!
Wait, is that girl in the magazine? Looks like two more of them found me. I won't give them a single opportunity. I dashed forward and swung at both of them as I passed. The two men didn't even have a chance to draw their weapons before they were felled. With those two dealt with, I headed deeper into their base. They must have been alerted about an intruder because numerous Mafia began to stream out continuously.
There's the intruder!
I've seen her before. She's the girl who's been on talk of the town recently.
That's not good. What if someone like the Immovable shows up?
Stop cowering, you idiots. She broke in here alone. We can deal with one girl. The Mafia members all lunged forward to attack at once. There had to be at least 10 of them, with even more streaming out of their base. I'm heavily outnumbered and it's going to be tough to get through them all with just me and my sword. Although waiting for Zin and the others is the smart move here. Time is of the essence, and the siblings are in danger with every second I waste. I'm going to eliminate them all, to make sure the siblings will be safe. Even if there's this many enemies, there's nothing for me to be scared of. If they were trained soldiers, their formation and tactics would be the bulk of their strength. Their power would be proportional to their numbers. These Mafia members aren't trained soldiers. They're not on the strength of a Heiwei member. At best, they're second or third rate. Even if they coordinated their attacks, I'm just a single person and they're going to get in the way of each other trying to go for me. Their numbers advantage means nothing and their strength's been diminished. I just need to pay attention to their movements and stay on the move. If the enemy has a gun, I need to block their line of sight with other enemies. I need to make sure all their melee members are clumped together so that they hinder each other's movements. And once I find a weak point, I strike. 1, 2. It's easy to create a gap when the enemies push back. I kept this in mind as I broke out into a sprint once more, charging at them with high speed. I began to move erratically to throw off the enemy. Once I got near someone, I quickly slashed as I run past them. 3, 4. I begin to outflank them, dashing in and out, always being aware of my position and what's behind me. Soon, I made it to the back of the group. Their rear guard were all concentrated in groups in the back. They raised their guns in a panic, but it was too late. They didn't expect me to break through like that. None of them are suited for close-range combat. I dashed in and made quick work of them with my sword. 5, 6, 7. About half of them have fallen. The rest were stunned at what happened and began to lose the will to fight. Some of them charged recklessly in desperation. In their rush, some gunners misfired and began hitting their own allies. Now that the battle has reached this point, my victory is all but decided. I just need to keep my guard up and take the rest of them down, one by one. As I moved forward, I kept running into several small groups of Mafia goons, but I easily swatted them down. I went on deeper into the complex, and finally, I found him, the leader of this Mafia group. This middle-aged man was pacing anxiously around this luxurious and tasteless room. The moment he saw me, he started to tremble. How did you get in here? What happened to my men? I took them all out, I responded calmly. The leader looked at me and shouted, You're joking! How can a silly girl like you single-handedly defeat my organization that I built all by myself? I took this chance to get close to him and drew my sword and pointed it at him. Almost immediately, I heard an ear-shattering wail come out from him. I'm not just some silly girl. I'm a bracer, you know. Don't worry. Your men are all unconscious or unable to move. I don't take lives. Now, come along and join them in jail. That's all I was going to say, but I sharply glanced at him and pointed my sword at his throat. But before that, you're going to give me some answers. You have no right to refuse or to remain silent. Understood? He had a frightened expression and began to tremble as he slowly nodded. Last month, a pair of siblings, a boy and girl nearly 10 years old, went missing. Were you behind the kidnapping? He nodded. Really? Alright then. Are the children safe? Where are they right now? Here. They're right here. In the room behind us. They're still alive. The moment I heard that, I felt relieved beyond measure. Our original mission had been completed. There were still a few things I needed to know, however. I began to question about the Mafia itself. For a Mafia that controls this region, you guys really are nothing special. I found this ledger of yours while I made my way through this place. You guys are just subcontractors, aren't you? After hearing that word, as if I hit a nerve, he continued to be silent but also stopped nodding or shaking his head. The response already told me everything I needed to know. Answer me. Which organization do you belong to? Is it A? I began to act tougher and tried to weasel out an answer. The scared and trembling man was about to answer when I suddenly heard a strange noise from the hallway behind me. I drew my sword and took off, prepared for whatever battle might be ahead. I started to hear sounds in the distance. The mysterious sounds kept ringing throughout the hallway. It was an eerie noise that made even me shudder. It became more and more clear as I ran. I thought I heard a few groans, but those were almost immediately silenced. Sensing something, I immediately steeled myself and prepared to retaliate against attacks from all directions. I continued to move slowly across the hallway. At the end, I found the most horrifying scene. At the location in which I had just fought, all I could see were piles of meat where there used to be people. It wasn't just one or two. The entire floor was strewn with corpses as far as the eye can see. Some of them were decapitated. Some had their internal organs ripped out and minced. Others had their heads crushed. Others still had their hearts ripped from their body. All that I could see was death, by means of which I could neither fathom nor stomach. Before long, the floor was completely drenched by a river of blood. What cruelty? What kind of person would do this? This tragedy laid bare in front of me was too much. I clenched my hands so hard that I began to tremble. Why did it have to be like this? What is the meaning of... Could it be? Oh no. Oh no! I just realized my mistake. I quickly turned around and rushed back into the room I came from. I was too late. In the middle of the room, the leader was floating in the center. Blood was dripping from his mouth. He would no longer utter anything again. A massive sword was embedded in his chest. He's dead. Like his subordinates back out there, he didn't even have time to scream. Who are you? I tried to hold back my anger and sound a bit more brave as I entered the empty room. I looked around and saw nothing except the dead man in the center. I looked more carefully and saw something. A distortion in the space, along with a fuzzy outline. It was some kind of optical camouflage. It would be more courteous of you to announce your first name, right? the beautiful ace of the Bracer Guild. It sounded like a man's voice. He sounded extremely arrogant and proud. It seemed like he thought he was above everyone else. I unconsciously prepared myself for combat. The man didn't react to my movements, and instead continued to speak. Why are you so agitated? Stand down. There's no reason to fight. I'm only here to clean up after the idiots that got caught by the CID. After thinking about what had just transpired outside, I couldn't help but think. Clean up? The speaker doesn't even sound like they're human. Are you their partner? No. You're probably their superior. Correct you are. As the man spoke, he casually tossed the corpse of their leader aside, as if he was tossing a cigarette butt. You bastard! How could you do this to your own men? My own men? I'm afraid you've misunderstood me. Didn't I say I was here to clean up? There's only garbage here, completely disposable. The only difference is whether they're living or not. I couldn't find a way to communicate with him at all. My body began to tremble as I seethed with anger, and I soon began to take action. You're a monster! As I came to my senses, I immediately made my move, putting all my strength and speed into my sword as I made an unavoidable stab. He just slashed down his sword and parried my attack. It was at this moment I realized just how strong this person was. He effortlessly stopped my attack with perfect timing. His strength seemed limitless, and his speed as fast as lightning. That cruciform sword of his, although it was partially camouflaged, it couldn't hide its strange energy. They were strange silver and black patterns, as if both holy and devilish energies resided in it together. It wasn't an ordinary weapon. Even if I used all of my strength and training, my odds of beating him are low. But there's no way I could let this man escape. I decided to attack again. If my frontal assault fails, I'll attempt to flank him with as much speed as I can muster, so that I can strike again. He blocked my attack with ease. But it's not yet over. If I keep myself on my feet, continuously moved and attacked, growing faster with each passing moment. Attack, accelerate, attack, accelerate, attack, accelerate. Once I reached my maximum speed, I began to change my movements, and I quickly wrapped around him. I attacked at him with all my strength, and I saw his camouflaged outline distort a bit. Success! Suddenly, as if he had seen this move coming, he quickly drew his weapon and made a large arc in the air and tried to strike me. I put up the best defensive posture I could. The hit was so powerful it sent shockwaves through my body. In spite of the fact that I was able to defend against the brunt of the attack, the force of it caused my body to quiver. I was still trembling, but I managed to stand up and make eye contact with the man. His strength is overwhelming. That man alone can control an entire battlefield with skills like his. It's as if he reached heights of power that any martial artist could hope for. Beyond that, it seems like he's achieved enlightenment. He saw through my posture that I was bluffing and just chuckled. Not bad. Not bad. You're stronger than the rumors suggest. This made things a lot more fun for me. You're obviously extremely strong. What's your purpose for all this? I didn't think he would answer my question, but he stood there and thought about it for a while before responding. My purpose, I guess I would have to say it's fear. Fear? I had no idea what he was going on about, so I asked again. Fear is the driving force behind existence. Domination, obedience, new life, coexistence, and even order. None of this would be possible without the existence of fear. That is why I am pursuing the ultimate fear. It's like the Tower of Babel in Crossbell, half a year ago. It's a shame that it no longer exists. He said that in an excited and cheerful tone. I cannot see his face, but I can just imagine what his expression looks like. There's no doubt this man is 100% serious about what he said. You're mad. I'm sure you'll understand what I'm talking about one day, if you continue to try and resist my plans idly like this. He put down his sword. It seemed like he was finished with his work here. I'll give you a reward for your help in cleaning up here. You'll find the two kids a bit deeper in the complex. Welcome to the stream, Dark Fantasy Realms. Hope you're enjoying the visual novel version of it. Oh, and before our next meeting, I do hope you work hard on improving yourself. He turned and left. Wait! Get back here! As I reached out with my hand, the ground under his feet began to glow and shimmer. When the light faded, he had disappeared. He had used some kind of transportation technique to escape. I felt my strength leaving my body. It's not because I was relieved the kids were safe. In fact, I'm just a little girl who can't do anything. My work here is still unfinished. I walked deeper into the place and found a small room at the end. I opened the door and found what seemed to be a storage room. The two children I were looking for were at the back of the room. They were huddled in the corner. The older brother was shaking, while the younger sister was leaning on him. I'm here to rescue you. You don't need to worry anymore. I tried my best to speak as softly and gently as I could. When the little girl saw my face, she slowly began to smile, while her brother kept his head hung. I walked slowly into the room. The boy continued to tremble while shaking his head, desperately trying to get away from me. Fear is the driving force behind existence, the man's voice echoed through my head. The children are trapped in a prison of fear. I tried my best not to upset the boy as I approached him. The closer I got, the more resistance he showed. When I was within arm's reach of the boy, he became more and more agitated, as if he wanted to scream, but no words would come out. Please, don't worry. I smiled and tried to confront him. Suddenly, hello for the second time, Dark Fantasy Realms. I reached behind me and grabbed a knife. I turned my head to see the girl holding a knife. She took advantage of me getting closer to her brother by trying to wrap around and stab me. She looked astonished that I managed to block her attack. Her smiling expression had disappeared. Her expression was blank, as if she was in a daze. Fear can dominate a person. It's just like he'd said. Maybe you two encountered something so frightening and awful that forced you to try such a thing. To try and stab someone who came to save you. Perhaps this was a result of fear taking over their hearts and minds. Because I had grabbed the knife with my bare hand, I felt blood sliding down my fingertips. It didn't matter. I continued to speak to the girl as gently as I could. The situation isn't easy to resolve. Humans are not only driven by fear. We can choose to resist, to use our courage to resist. It's like what your brother showed here. Despite him trembling in fear, he still had the courage to attempt to alert me that danger was coming, to prevent his sister from making a mistake. It was thanks to him that I was able to stop her attempt on my life. Please, there's no need to worry. No more worrying. Your big bracer sister is here to protect you. As I said those words, I hugged the girl tightly. Bracer? As her words reached my ears, I could tell that she was still empty, as if she was numb. You're right, I'm a bracer. I'm here for you. Really? I remember seeing Big Sister in magazines several times. I remember you were the sword... Exactly. Although it's a bit embarrassing to use a nickname like that. It's a bit easy. At least it's easy to remember. As long as that name exists, as long as I'm still here by your side, I'll always protect you. I hugged the girl even tighter, to protect her from harm, and to mend her broken heart. So please, don't worry. Everything's alright now. Soon the girl's expression began to change. It wasn't long before there were tears in her eyes, and she began to sob. She began to cry more and more. Eventually, it got to the point where she couldn't stop. It was at this moment the girl was free from fear, when she had finally regained her human emotions. I'm still standing at the same place, paralyzed by fear and unable to move. Even so, this is the honorable path I have chosen. There's no turning back. There's no stopping now. So I finally decided. Later in the capital of Calvard's branch office. It seems that the Mafia was trying to imitate that organization. Zin and I were discussing the case together. Turned out the siblings were witnesses to some illegal trading, so they were taken away. The Mafia had only wanted to try to follow the rumored tactics of the organization, to try and educate the children into becoming cold-hearted assassins. Turns out their efforts to traffic drugs and educate them were poorly executed, to be caught not only by the CID, but your parent organization. Such a pity. If only I'd worked harder and handled it properly, they wouldn't have all died. Don't worry about it too much. Remember, the Guild's mission is to protect the general public. This is the price you pay for entering that kind of society. If you still feel like you're not strong enough, then take this mission's lessons to heart, and use it for your next case. The siblings that I had rescued had to go through therapy for quite some time. It was said that they were able to go back to their original lives in the end. My meeting with the two of them had inspired me. I can't just be stagnant and make no headway. I have to keep moving forward. Even if I trip or fall down in the future, it won't matter in the end. We need a hero more than ever right now. I remembered what my childhood friend had said. Even if it's a symbolic title, it doesn't matter. Even though I don't think I have the qualifications to be that hero, at least I can still be the hope that eradicates that darkness. I've decided that this is the road I want to go down. That way, if a qualified hero does show up someday, I'll be with them side by side. Alright, next up is today's main event. Zin turned and faced me. He seemed a lot more happier than usual. The official documents from Lemon will take a while to get here, but we don't need to be that formal here. Therefore, Calvert finally has a candidate to beat out the Purple Lightning's record for youngest A-rank bracer. Congratulations, Sword Maiden. A-rank bracer, Elaine Auclair. And so, the girl with sword in hand presses forward. End. Confirmation of the halting of the recordings of the law of causality. Astral link complete. With this, the intertwining chronicle of history of Erebos, and the land of destiny has reached its end. However, the bells signifying the end of time are resonating. Humanity, until the time comes for you to confront those days, enjoy your moments of peace. Together, with hope and despair, move beyond the Genesis.
Okay, I think that does it for me. I'll have one more bonus episode to show off the last episode, as well as some of the minigame stuff. In any case, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hajimari no Kiseki, and I will see you next time. I hope everyone enjoys Cold Steel 4 when they get it, and hopefully for all of you that is sometime soon. But until next time, au revoir, take care, and I'm gonna go make a sandwich.